Part 79. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 805. November 2020. Although it felt good to lie on her boyfriend's back and look around curiously, and Nuan was more worried about not taking a walk after eating to help digestion, which led to one day when Lu Chang'an touched her belly and said something like "You're pregnant," and Nuan decided to jump off his back. Be prepared for danger in times of peace. Although you are a young and beautiful girl now, your strong metabolism prevents you from accumulating too much fat, but it is necessary to be careful and vigilant. What's more, she actually needs some fat to grow where it should grow. It would be very sad if it grew on her belly. She knew very well that her figure had made great progress, but there was still a small gap between her and Professor Lu. Ever since she understood the word figure, Professor Lu had been the ceiling in Nuan's heart. Judging from the way Lu Chang'an occasionally lingered on Professor Lu today, Professor Liu's charm has not declined because of the increase in Nuan's charm. This is the pain of falling in love. Nuan actually envies Hans Hizzy for being like a pig, sitting on the sofa motionless and touching her belly after eating, so comfortable and comfortable. However, if Nuan and Hans Hizzy wanted to change their lives, they would definitely not agree to it. After all, everything can be replaced or lost, but this precious boyfriend cannot be replaced or lost. So Nuan touched his back again. A place that provides special services to women? If you apply for the job, you must be the top one, Nuan chuckled. After careful analysis, the men who come to work in such a place are most likely to be unpopular male models and gym tyrants. Part-time jobs such as sports students and athletes. If you don't have extraordinary physical abilities, you probably won't be able to get along in a place like this. Those who are average in body but are good at sweet talking and coaxing middle-aged and elderly women to look like cute little ladies probably don't go to this place to find jobs, they go to that kind of place. More suitable for drinking and flirting. The women who come here probably come here for naked desires and want to satisfy their physical needs. Speaking of this, Nuan Qi has something to say. Personal experience strongly proves that Lu Chang'an is definitely qualified for the position of the club's top duck. In the past, when Nuan reads some men's novels, in order to show the hero's strength or give the hero a reason to start a harem, the heroine was always weak and incompetent, indicating that the hero should find other sisters to share the burden. These are some of the older plots that Nuan has just started to get into online novels. Now even male readers can't stand it when they see this kind of thing. But now Nuan has some understanding. Understanding is understanding. The key is to strengthen one's own abilities, rather than letting others share the burden. Solve your own affairs by yourself, and forget about finding a sister. Top card, Lu Chang'an frowned. Nuan became wary. She just said something casually, but looking at her boyfriend's expression and Nuan's understanding of him, he decided not to say anything humanly again. I am a picky person and someone who is strict with myself. Since I am the top brand, I must have the pomp of the top brand. I will definitely not accept ordinary customers. Lu Chang'an looked at Nuan and looked at her from top to bottom. Then nodded. Are you saying that you must at least have the same conditions as mine? Nuan was a little shy and proud. I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to be like this. You, the top one, will have no business. Don't you patronize me. Lu Chang'an looked at Nuan suspiciously. Confucius listened to Shao music and didn't know the taste of meat in March. That's because for Confucius, Shao music is the highest spiritual enjoyment. But for Confucius, Shao music is the highest spiritual enjoyment. For you, do you have such a noble and ultimate spiritual pursuit? If you don't know the taste of meat for 3 months, what will you use to replace your spiritual enjoyment? Do you rely on your own efforts? Lu Chang'an, Nuan's cheeks were red. As a pure and beautiful girl, she had no idea that Lu Chang'an's words were full of slander. But she has been defiled by Lu Chang'an. It didn't matter if he occasionally said that he understood. and Nuan used his trump card, jumped up and put his arms around Lu Chang'an's neck, trying to knock him down. Lu Chang'an did not resist, and fell into Nuan's arms. Nuan said ouch and staggered back a few steps before he regained his balance. He looked at the ground, which was wet with sewage hair like winter and spring. The black color made it impossible to really throw him to the ground. If you don't patronize me, as the leader of the club, then I want to consolidate my position and attract business that suits me. What kind of people do you think I should expand my business to based on my own taste and preferences? Lu Chang'an leaned into Nuan's arms, with the corners of his mouth slightly raised. Nuan was immediately furious and immediately let go, letting him fall to the ground. Needless to say, with his tastes and preferences, who else could he target for business expansion? Lu Chang'an grasped the ground with his feet like nails, and stood upright. Of course, he would not fall. He grabbed Nuan's waist and said to his angry girlfriend, "Look for trouble by yourself, and set a target on others. It would be too cute to be angry again." Nuan turned her head, her big pupils rolling in her eye sockets, and carefully observed Lu Chang'an, wondering if he was speaking sarcastically. "It's really cute. If someone else did this, of course I would just hang him on the tree. But my girlfriend is very reasonable when she really wants to talk about things. She usually gets a little jealous but is not overly unreasonable or teasing. You'll be happy once you're coaxed, and you won't always be pretentious and think you're nurturing your boyfriend. That's how cute you are." Lu Chang'an smiled. A man can't take it as his duty to be a dog licker. Of course, he must also be magnanimous. If he treats dog licker is a word that is extremely offensive to the point of hypersensitivity. When looking at the interaction between men and women, it is not necessary to pay too much attention to your own self-esteem, equality, and rationality, so as not to fall into the suspicion of licking the dog. Who said I'd be happy after being coaxed? I'm not angry to begin with. Nuan put her hands on her hips to show that she was telling the truth. Am I a jealous person? I usually pay attention to the way you look at other women. But also to remind myself that I still have shortcomings, and there is still a little gap from the perfect girlfriend. Lu Chang'an laughed. Seeing his complete disbelief, Nuan hit him several more times. Really, she obviously believed it herself. The two people were chatting when they saw a Toyota coaster stopped at the door of the women's club. Opening the door, you can see from a distance that the interior is a luxurious customized version, not a popular model with ordinary minibus seating arrangements. A tall, slender man with a rather monstrous appearance, who many people consider to be a charming and handsome man, walked down first. With a smile on his face, like a gentle gentleman, he stood at the door of the car to greet the guests behind him. 7 or 8 women filed down, including professional elites in their early 20s, and women in their mid-teens. The oldest one was about 50, with slightly curly and fluffy hair, and wearing a pair of gold-rimmed round glasses. The book is full of temperament, and he looks like an expert and professor of considerable status. After these women came down, the door of the club opened, and they could see a row of young men of almost the same height in suits and ties, uniformly dressed, waiting inside the door. They all have young and sunny smiles on their faces, like big boys, like reliable little brothers, like traditional men who are knowledgeable and sensible, or like strong and powerful men. A group of women walked in and the door of the club was closed again. The man who got off the car first looked around casually and walked onto coaster. The car then left the entrance of the club and drove to the parking lot on the right. Do they only pick up and not drop off? After enjoying the service, customers have to take a taxi and leave by themselves after paying the bill. After all, I feel guilty coming to a place like this. It is impossible to ask my husband, family, and friends to pick me up. Compare the enthusiasm and service received, customers will inevitably feel a little uncomfortable. Lu Chang'an said after thinking, after all, he has sold rice noodles on the street and knows how to treat guests. Is this the point? There are acquaintances inside that I know. The grandma who went in last is from my grandmother's work. I often see her when I go to play, and she even gave me a red envelope, and Nuan was in disbelief. Said. It's human nature. When you are 50, you will still be full of interest. Lu Chang'an hoped that she would not be biased. Don't middle-aged and elderly people have such needs? I don't know how. When I was 50, I didn't bother to care about you, and Nuan was still immersed in shock. It wasn't that she thought that middle-aged and elderly people couldn't have needs in that regard, but she had always been. It's still hard to accept that my respectful, kind grandma appears in a place like this. I just said that this place provides some special services. That was my judgment. Others may not know it. Professor Ling and your mother wouldn't have come if they didn't have my advice, Lu Chang'an reminded. And Nuan came to her senses. It was possible. Let's go. It's such an above-board place, and it doesn't look like a place where people are killed and cannibalized. This industry is very old. The first time I discovered the existence of this industry was not because of dolphins and penguins, but because I was observing net discovered by Homo sapiens. Neanderthals are now extinct. Their brain capacity is larger than that of Homo sapiens, but that does not mean they are smarter. They also know how to provide physical services in exchange for. Then let's go quickly. If that grandma comes out later and sees us, it will be so embarrassing, and Nuan didn't want to listen to Lu Chang'an's nonsense about primitive people's prostitution and whoring, and quickly pulled Lu Chang'an away. Thanks to 36D Facial Cleanser for your generous reward and becoming an ally of this book. I will update it today or tomorrow. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 806. And Nuan took Lu Chang'an away, and Lu Chang'an continued to tell the story of Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, as well as the unknown details behind the extinction of Neanderthals. The extinction of many races in biological history is often accidental. If a unique creature like myself becomes extinct one day, it must be because there are no descendants left, so we still have to work hard tonight. We cannot be like the Neanderthals who only left many modern humans around the world. A few % traces were left. The more he cares about what he lacks, the more Lu Chang'an cares about it. When Lu Chang'an was moving bricks at the construction site, he never thought that it was a job that was not classy or classy in the eyes of others, because he did not lack class or classy life at all. According to the traditional female functional aesthetic point of view, and Nuan is actually quite suitable for having children. It does not mean that there is Qinyanan who is most suitable for having children, and Nuan is not so suitable. Lu Chang'an thought as he looked at Nuan's tight jeans. Her fingers were soft and she gently hooked Lu Chang'an's hand. Her steps were cheerful and she was mumbling about what she had just seen. She looked as cute as a little girl who found a pile of grains in the rice fields after harvesting in autumn. Sparrows, chirping and jumping for joy. When a man loves a woman, he wants to have children with her. I'm going to the auto show tomorrow, so go back to bed early, Lu Chang'an said with a yawn. And Nuan smiled. This person was extremely energetic. Not to mention yawning, he was busy all night and didn't have any impact when he woke up in the morning. After walking for so long, I'm a little hungry. I want to have some barbecue before going back, and Nuan took Lu Chang'an's hand and shook her head coquettishly. Okay, I want to eat goat eggs. She obviously kept lying on his back, but Lu Chang'an had no objection. And Nuan found a Xiamen roadside barbecue grill. Lu Chang'an looked around and took Nuan to the tank oven barbecue shop. This kind of barbecue shop is common in the Northeast, but hard to find in the South. I was a little surprised to see it here. Many people think that eating a teppanyaki in winter, or having a bowl of haggis soup, mutton hot pot, or rack of mutton at Xiamen barbecue restaurant is quite enjoyable, but clay oven barbecue, it makes people feel that the coldness has disappeared, the whole body is warm, and they forget about winter. The main feature of the tandoor grill is the grilling tools. An iron bucket with grooves at the bottom to facilitate air circulation. Apply a thick layer of mud to the inner wall. Place a piece of burned charcoal at the bottom, then fill it with charcoal. Blow air from the bottom to make the charcoal burn brightly. Place a piece of mud on the top of the iron bucket. Iron grid. The meat to be roasted is placed on this iron grid, which is almost equivalent to roasting directly in the fire. When eating this, don't put too much in it at once, otherwise it will be burnt all at once and you will be in a hurry, Lu Chang'an said to An Nuan. He often goes to Korean barbecue restaurants and likes to spread the ingredients on the iron plate. That's not possible here. I'll bake it for you, and Nuan was very positive, but was confused about the dipping sauce. The dipping sauce for clay oven barbecue is different from what we Southerners are used to. This one is mainly sesame paste, with sugar and vinegar added. You can add other fine ingredients by yourself. It sounds a bit magical, but it tastes really good. You'll taste it later. Lu Chang'an mixed An Nuan's dipping sauce. Hers has more sugar and less vinegar, his has less sugar and more vinegar. Of course, the overall situation is about the same, not too sweet or too vinegary. It looks delicious, and Nuan looked around and saw that the food in the store was really in full swing. Everyone on the table was eating to their heart's content, and all kinds of wine bottles were piled all over the table. Lu Chang'an had already begun to bake by himself, and did not wait for An Nuan, who seemed to be actively trying to do it just now. There are no goat eggs for you to eat. Sheep eggs need to be baked for a long time, and ordinary customers don't know how to control the heat, so they are prone to burnt on the outside and raw on the inside. Lu Chang'an doesn't have to eat it. When he said he wanted to eat goat's eggs, he was just hinting at comfort, but he didn't really need to eat them to replenish his body. There are sheep whips. And Nuan said in a low voice. She saw it written on the menu. That thing, it actually has no taste, and it's hard to taste. Lu Chang'an glanced at her, frowned and said, why is it not pure at all now? You want to hint at me? I didn't, and Nuan wanted to punch someone again. He was obviously the one driving the car from time to time, and An Nuan was just a tainted pure girl. Even if it is tarnished, it is only on the surface, and the heart is still pure. In public places with many people, An Nuan stopped beating him. An Nuan punished him by eating a piece of pork belly that he had grilled that didn't look so good. During the meal, An Nuan was worried that Hans Hizzy was still watching TV at her house, and felt the need to please Hans Hizzy. Even though Lu Chang'an repeatedly tarnished An Nuan still felt that as a girlfriend, it was necessary to cooperate with some of her boyfriend's plans. After Hans Hizzy had eaten and drank enough, she probably wouldn't compete with Lu Chang'an and try to sabotage Lu Chang'an's plan, and Nuan herself didn't care, it was all for him. The experience in Linen made Lu Chang'an feel grudge against Hans Hizzy. He always felt that Hans Hizzy's desire to be a light bulb was too strong. And Nuan also wanted to dispel this concern of her boyfriend. So An Nuan packed up a piece of grilled mutton rolls, a piece of snowflake beef, and a piece of salted egg yolk, butter and meat mixed with rice. The salted egg yolk, butter and pork rice mixed with rice was prepared for Lu Chang'an. Last time he stayed here for the night, he went to the kitchen to find something to eat. If he was hungry in the middle of the night, he could just heat it in the microwave. When she got home, Hans Hizzy was indeed there. She was hugging Professor Lu. The two of them were wearing the same thick blanket and watching the TV series with sad faces. It's so touching. The male lead donated his hands to the second male lead. Watching the second male lead holding the heroine's hand and walking into the wedding scene, he said that his wish came true, and his wish was to hold the leading lady's hand. Walking into the church holding the heroine's hand, Hans Hizzy wiped her eyes with emotion. Let me give you a spoiler. After 3 episodes, the second male lead got cancer, and the male lead donated one of his kidneys. Professor Lu sighed, this is love. And Nuan let out a long breath. She occasionally watched it, but her love was very sweet and perfect, so she wasn't that interested in these romantic dramas recently. Lu Chang'an took a look at the TV. The first male lead and the second male lead were playing wildly, dancing and immersed, with ferocious faces. He was just a little impressed. It turns out that hands can be donated like this. The screenwriter is really talented. This must be a medical doctor. Drama. I brought you delicious food, and Nguyen took out the bibimbap and handed the other packing boxes to Hans Hizzy. What's that? Hans Hizzy stared at the bibimbap in Nguyen's hand. And Nguyen didn't show it to her, but took it directly to the refrigerator. It must be the most delicious, and it should be reserved for Lu Chang'an. Hans Hizzy was a little concerned, but she didn't care about her best friend who had lost her humanity after having a relationship with the opposite sex. She stood up with other packing boxes. Auntie, I'm going back, and my mother probably has too. A little hungry. Eat less at night, Lu Yuwang said without raising her head while still staring at the TV. In order to stay in shape, she usually stopped eating at this time in the evening. However, Professor Ling next door didn't care much. She wanted to belly dance to look good. I want a little bit of meat on my belly, not a bloated swimming ring kind of thing, but something that looks soft, not tight, and smooth like Lu Yuwang. Well, I'm back. Hans Hizzy spanked Nguyen, laughed twice, and lifted the packing box to show that he understood her intention to sell. And Nguyen bit her lip and blushed, but didn't say anything. She felt a little guilty, so she pretended not to know what she meant. I made a bed for Lu Chang'an in the study. Lu Yuwang turned off the TV with regret. The plot was so touching, full of twists and turns, and left people wanting more. Ah, and Nguyen was taken aback. He coughed quickly to cover up his surprise and nodded slowly. Thank you, Mom. When Lu Chang'an and I were having barbecue, I told him to let him spread the floor by himself. Bed. Lu Chang'an smiled, because from his position, he could see that there was no bed at all in the study. Professor Lu knew his daughter well. She lacked abilities in other aspects, but she was always good at cleaning up Nguyen. After Lu Yuwang finished speaking, he stood up and stretched into the room. Nguyen glanced at Lu Yuwang's back and quickly walked into the study to see that Professor Lu was really interested in Lu Chang'an's affairs. No, why did she start actively helping the beautiful girl escape Lu Chang'an's humiliation again today? But there was no bed made in the study. Nguyen turned around in surprise, only to find that Lu Yuwang had walked out of the room again and was looking at Nguyen. Ahem, let me check. If you haven't put the quilt, put it. Nguyen touched her hair and went to the bathroom. I'll tease her. Lu Yuwang smiled happily. The same expression as many parents who tease their children and find it interesting. You go to bed first, Nguyen and I will sleep in the study room. Lu Chang'an also found it very interesting, whether he was teasing the children himself or watching others tease her children. But Lu Chang'an generally didn't like to see others teasing his own children. He didn't like others teasing Zhou Dongdong in a prank manner, and he didn't like anyone other than Lu Yuwang teasing Nguyen. Dao to Lu Yuwang is also quite interesting. Lu Yuwang was a little confused, and then he remembered that he stayed overnight that night and had to run to the hotel in the middle of the night. Although he understood that this was an effective solution, Lu Yuwang still glared at Lu Chang'an hard and punched him several times before going back to the room. After a while, Nguyen came out of the bathroom and found that Lu Chang'an was actually making the bed in the study. Nguyen couldn't help but wonder, there is a period of burnout in love, could it happen so quickly? And his fatigue with the beautiful girl's body came so quickly? Obviously the last time he stayed here, he still couldn't sleep. Well, the bed is quite good. Nguyen walked to the study and praised Lu Chang'an's labor achievements. He pulled the sheets tight and flat, and even folded the quilt neatly. There were 2 sheets on the bedside. Pillow. In the course of 100 years of life, I live half of it during the day and half of it at night. The place where I live during the day may be lying on the veranda, a boat, or a car, but there is no definite place, while the place where I live at night is only a bed. This is a bed, something I have shared for half my life. Compared with the bed that is made of hair and chaff, there is no better way for people to treat things than this. Lu Chang'an thought of this passage again, and then touched the bed sheets. Of course the bed is more important than your wife, but you should also pay attention to the sheets. I see, you dare to say this in front of me, which is enough to show the importance of the bed, and Nuan nodded in agreement. Could she still be jealous of the bed? Just give it a kick. Bed sheets affect the quality of sleep even more, especially for people who are not used to wearing pajamas to sleep. The feeling of the sheets against the skin is more important than the touch of your girlfriend's skin. After all, you can't touch your girlfriend's skin for a long time, but the bed sheet will stick to it all night long. Lu Chang'an remembered that someone had tried to make beauty leather bed sheets before, but the actual results were not good. He has never done this. He is not that perverted, most of the time he is just vicious and violent, rather than cruel and violent. Then do you want to continue talking about the importance of quilts and what makes them better than girlfriends? And Nuan had already pushed Lu Chang'an down on the bed, biting her lip and threatening him. That's not necessary. Lu Chang'an held her slender waist, clasped his hands tightly, and looked back through the wall in the direction of Professor Liu's room. If we sleep here tonight, it won't affect Professor Liu's sleep. And Nuan's soft cheeks were lightly smeared with powder, and the shyness in her eyes was getting darker. It turned out that she was not tired of the charm of the beautiful girl, but just wanted to relieve her of her psychological burden. Otherwise, Nuan would have been biting the funny pillow tonight. Lu Yuang woke up in the morning and felt calmly hungry. He got dressed and went to the hotel restaurant for a walk. They still served Western-style meals. Lu Yuang lives a very exquisite life. At her age, or most people think that every bit of Western-style lifestyle is exquisite, but her taste buds, her stomach, and her brain have deep feelings about food. The pursuit of taste made her give up Western meals. There were not many types of Chinese food in the restaurant and the taste was not satisfactory. Lu Yuang frowned and decided to go downstairs to eat Lanzhou beef noodles. Lu Yuang had just walked across the street when he saw Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan pushing an electric car. Last time Lu Yuang was disturbed by An Nuan and Lu Chang'an and couldn't sleep, so he came to the hotel to sleep. He also saw the scene when he went out in the morning, but at that time, Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan were standing at the door of a beef stewed radish shop, and they brought a big black dog with them. The last time I saw Shang Guandandan, her long hair hung down her back, as if she had cut a piece of dark night. The soft light was like the stars and moon shining in the dark night. Her neat bangs and meticulous and serious expression. As long as she didn't speak, she looked elegant and elegant. The majestic temperament always reminds people of those goddesses and saints with special identities and mysterious powers. Today she had a pair of ponytails, and there were two small airplane ornaments hanging on the hairband, which were exactly the same as the hairbands on Zhou Dongdong He Miao's two stubbless of hair. Lu Yuang was a little happy. She deliberately observed and tested last night. Sure enough, when An Nuan and Lu Chang'an started talking about life ideals and poems in the study room to improve their spiritual civilization and develop their moral, intellectual, and physical abilities, Lu Yuang felt a little restless and troubled. And, having no idea how to let herself fall asleep, simply ran to the hotel. Lu Yuang chose the same hotel because the hotel front desk told her last time that the hotel was currently offering a very favorable points policy at the rack rate. Unexpectedly, he met the lovely Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan again. Lu Yuang walked over with her skirt in hand and greeted them from a distance. Dongdong, Dandan. Shang Guandandan is actually his equal, but does Lu Yuang call Shang Guandandan Chang and mother? Of course that was inappropriate. Showing that he had seen through the truth was not what Professor Lu, who was well versed in human nature, would do. Do you always go out for a walk in the morning? Lu Yuang walked up to them and asked. When Brother Chang'an is not at home, we go out to find food by ourselves. Zhou Dongdong is a little confused about this question. When Brother Chang'an is not at home, the breakfast made by his mother always seems not as delicious as usual, only meat buns. The buns still taste the same, but you can't eat meat buns every day. Even Sister Dandan, who likes meat buns the most, doesn't want to eat them every day. Professor Lu, do you want to have breakfast together? Shangguan Dandan touched the 20 yuan in his pocket and decided to treat them. After all, it was Lu Yuang who invited them last time. It would be disrespectful to do so. Lu Yuang glanced at Zhou Dongdong and found that Zhou Dongdong was tilting his head and looking at her expectantly. Sister, do you still want to eat beef and radish? Zhou Dongdong asked. You can eat anything, Lu Yuang smiled broadly. So Shangguan Dandan started pushing the electric car, and Zhou Dongdong followed behind the electric car to help. Lu Yuang wanted to take the two of them on the electric car, but he was not sure that he could ride safely. Shangguan Dandan also treasured her electric car. It looked like it would be terrible if her beloved electric car was damaged. Lu Yuang remembered that when he first bought a new car, he, like Shangguan Dandan, would drive everywhere. But comparatively speaking, Shangguan Dandan's spirit of pushing even though he can't ride a bicycle is more touching and childish. This is definitely a sequelae left by his rejuvenation. This sequelae is indeed a bit serious. Lu Yuang hopes that he can return to his green years, but he does not want to become naive. The three of them didn't go to eat beef stewed with radish, and Lu Yuang didn't go to eat the beef noodles that he wanted to eat. He took the two of them to the hotel restaurant to eat. Lu Yuang was not willing to eat in the hotel alone, but seeing Shangguan Dandan holding back his cheers and speeding up his steps as he walked into the restaurant, Zhou Dongdong's eyes wandered around, but Lu Yuang was in a good mood. That's what happens when you eat. Who you eat with is often more important than what you eat. It turned out that there was also a spider meal for breakfast. Zhou Dongdong tried his best to raise his head and walked over in front of the long dining table to observe. After all, he was a child who had seen spiders for dinner. The number and variety of spiders for breakfast was relatively small. Zhou Dongdong will no longer be dumbfounded. Lu Yuang ordered a tasteless clear noodle soup, added some seasoning suitable for locals, and topped it with braised pork toppings. For salad, I chose salmon and fennel salad. In fact, the spicy garlic clam seafood handmade pasta here is quite suitable for Lu Yuang, but it is not included in the morning buffet, so it can only be ordered from the menu during lunch and dinner. Zhou Dongdong brought a plate with a hill on it and everything on it. Shangguan Dandan sandwiched some ham slices because they looked similar to the sweet potato scrapes that Shangguan Dandan liked to eat, but in fact they tasted salty and greasy, and they tasted average even with side dishes. But Shangguan Dandan was just a poor Empress Dowager now, and she didn't have the aura that made a group of people tremble when she frowned once, so she had no choice but to eat them all under the same frowning circumstances. Shangguan Dandan wanted to eat sweet potato slices. After all, there were some heartwarming scenes of motherly kindness and filial piety with sweet potato slices. When there were only 4 sweet potato slices left that day, he still gave her 3 slices. So she went to get some small steamed purple sweet potatoes and dipped them in the honey juice to eat. Purple sweet potatoes are prettier. Professor Lu, if you have any questions, you can ask me. Shangguan Dandan finished eating a small purple sweet potato and looked at Lu Yuang and said. Ah, what questions do I have to ask you? Lu Yuang said unexpectedly. She did have many questions to ask Shangguan Dandan, but she knew those questions were not suitable to ask directly, so she would not ask them. Last time you came to our house, you have been secretly observing. I guess you have some doubts in your heart that cannot be answered, Shangguan said with a clear mind. Lu Yuang, this beautiful woman, is similar to Dong in some aspects. Dong Ma is similar, a little naive and childish in her heart. It's just that Dongdong's mother would hide her innocence and childishness to protect herself when facing others. Professor Lu in front of her did not set up such protection. She seemed to be like this all the time, when she was thinking about something. I thought I was calm, but when the Queen Mother was so wise, my little thoughts were nowhere to be seen. The Queen Mother is wise, Shang Guandandan nodded and praised himself. Lu Yuwang was surprised. He didn't expect that Shang Guandandan would see all of his quiet observations and cautious words. Sure enough, even if Shang Guandandan's words and deeds became childish, it was Lu Chang'an after all. Mom, a mature woman's ambition and thoughts are still there. Actually, it's nothing, I know you are Lu Chang'an's mother, and I will keep it a secret. Lu Yuwang lowered his voice and looked around. Sure enough, a waiter was paying attention to him. Where there are many women, gossip is paid special attention to. Lu Yuwang is now considered a frequent visitor to this hotel. It is normal for a woman like her to attract special attention and gossip from other women. This is not a secret at all. Shang Guandandan didn't say much. He just gave Lu Yuwang a majestic look. Although it was unnecessary for her to say this, it was obvious that she was a measured woman. This was good, unlike that woman Sunangziu. They will only shout and make a lot of noise when they are startled. Seeing Shang Guandandan's silent admission, Lu Yuwang breathed out in disbelief, and then ate a piece of braised pork. As far as I know, Lu Chang'an should have gone to your house yesterday to deliver preserved eggs. Aren't you at home? You have to put the preserved eggs away when you go back. They will be ready to eat in more than 20 days. Shang Guandandan was a little worried that Lu Yuwang would not be able to eat them. Be kind to the preserved eggs made by Lu Chang'an. Preserved eggs can be eaten after more than 20 days of cooking. This is what Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong were told last night when they were gathered around the clay pot that sealed the preserved eggs. Speaking of Lu Chang'an, Lu Yuwang had a question to ask Shang Guandandan. It was related to whether she could sleep well in the future. Although this question was difficult to discuss and Shang Guandandan may not be an expert, Shang Guandandan's that sense of mystery made Lu Yuwang think it was appropriate to ask Shang Guandandan some unscientific questions. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 807. Lu Yuwang was once pursued by a man from science and engineering. In fact, people who would actually take action and confidently pursue Professor Lu are now basically giants in their own fields. After all, if they were not good enough at the beginning, they would face hordes of competition. Those who do not have the confidence to join them, and it is natural for them to grow up many years later. This big man is currently engaged in aerospace, and he can often be seen in news about the launch of some launch vehicles recently. Daniel is actually very young, the same age as Lu Yuwang. The post-80s generation has widely become the mainstay of all walks of life, and even started to serve as the chief engineer of an aircraft carrier. Lu Yuwang was pursued feverishly by him for a period of time, and then suddenly there was no news. Later, they met on a certain occasion. After reminiscing about the past, Daniel himself said that at a certain moment, he suddenly felt that the greatest romance for a man was the stars and space, and pursued Lu Yuwang. The professor didn't satisfy his greatest need for romance. As a professor of literature, Lu Yuwang has a lot of romance in his heart, and he can accept Daniel's statement. Emotionality and paying attention to one's own emotions rather than focusing on the science or unscientific nature of something happening or why it happened are common characteristics of literature lovers, both young and old. Lu Yuwang can accept all kinds of special abilities of Lu Chang'an. She will not analyze whether his special abilities are scientific or not, why he has this ability, how it is not consistent with common sense, etc. The key is not to arouse her disgust and rejection, and not to have a lot of negative impact on her emotions. At present, she is neither disgusted nor repelled, nor does it have much negative impact on her emotions, so Lu Yuwang will not find out why he is like this. As long as she is sure what happened, it will make her more sad or happier. Dan, Do you know about hunting cattle across the mountain? Lu Yuwang thought about it. It was a bit difficult to talk about it. For a moment, he didn't know how to word it. He felt that hunting cattle across the mountain was somewhat similar to the situation he encountered. Shang Guandandan glanced at the beef ribs on his other plate. The term sounded familiar, but he still blurted out and asked, "Is it a kind of beef that tastes as delicious as Japanese Wagyu?" Zhou Shuling would buy all kinds of beef, and sometimes she would also buy frozen imported beef brisket cubes. However, after stewing, the taste was always not as good as the ones bought at the wet market, so she no longer bought frozen beef that looked cheap but had an average taste. The Wagyu beef that Shang Guandandan had eaten was from Zhehuntang Xiaojing, and it tasted stronger than the ones Zhou Shuling bought. "Is there any delicious beef?" Zhou Dongdong came out of the barrier. "How can you contact Japanese Wagyu cattle when hunting cattle across the mountains?" Lu Yuwang had a little difficulty understanding Shang Guandandan's brain circuit. "No. It's not delicious beef. It often happens in martial arts dramas, that is, if you and Zhou Dongdong stand one behind the other, and I punch you, Zhou Dongdong is injured." "Well, this is called hunting cattle across the mountains," Lu Yuwang explained. It turned out that it was not delicious beef. Zhou Dongdong didn't care why he was injured and returned to the barrier. "Don't let Dongdong get hurt," Shang Guandandan said seriously. "This is just a metaphor." Lu Yuwang felt a headache. "I remembered, I've seen this kind of thing in novels." Shang Guandandan looked at his palms. "I'm very weak and don't have much strength. I don't even have the strength to do housework, so I don't know how to hunt cattle across the mountains, but Lu Chang'an definitely knows how to do it." Lu Yuwang's eyes lit up. He didn't care about maintaining the elegant posture of a beautiful woman. He leaned forward, put his breasts on the dining table, and stretched his neck. He found that the tone was really similar. "I know Lu Chang'an will definitely do it. One time I patted An Nuan on the leg, but I felt someone patted my leg as well. It turned out to be the skill of beating a cow across the mountain." Shang Guandandan looked at Lu Yuwang suspiciously. "If it is just such a thing, do we need to say it carefully?" As a wise queen mother, she knew that all she had to do at this moment was to keep a majestic silence. If she continued to speak, or thought about it, she finally felt that it was not suitable to talk about it in depth. There were some unspeakable reasons, and that was all Lu Yu's. Things to hope for. "But I just touched the 20 yuan in my pocket and said I would treat. 20 yuan is not enough for 3 people. The Queen Mother was just talking, but Lu Yuwang was considerate of me and took the initiative to bring her to Shang Guandandan Ping. He had a breakfast that he couldn't even afford." In view of this, Shang Guandandan decided to have a more in-depth communication with Lu Yuwang in return. "This is a serious problem." Shang Guandandan thought for a moment and nodded to show that he was treating Lu Yuwang's current situation carefully. "Yesterday Lu Chang'an went to your house and he didn't come back. That means he stayed overnight, and you didn't stay at home but stayed in a hotel. This may be because you have already planned the trip, or it may be because Lu Chang'an went to your home and you had to leave for some reason." Lu Yuwang sat up straight with a guilty conscience, her eyes swaying. "Will Shang Guandandan discover the problem? Given that the last time we met, you were staying away from home in a hotel, and it happened that Lu Chang'an went to your house to stay overnight the day before. So this is not a coincidence. It must be that Lu Chang'an came to your house, and you were at home for some reason. I can't stay any longer." Shang Guandandan looked at his palms. "Hitting cattle across the mountain, your real problem is that Lu Chang'an beat An Nuan at your home, which means you were also beaten by him, so you must leave home." Beating An Nuan, Lu Yuwang was shocked and a little funny. What did she think? Lu Yuwang often saw Lu Chang'an being beaten by An Nuan. Shang Guandandan frowned. The last time Lu Yuwang came to play at home, Dongdong's mother also said that Lu Yuwang was a professor and a very powerful person. She hoped that Dongdong would be as powerful as Professor Lu. It doesn't seem smart enough now. This is an implicit statement for the sake of breakfast, Shang Guandandan explained patiently. What kind of implicit statement? Lu Yuang vaguely understood with some enthusiasm, but he was not sure, especially since the person in front of him was exquisite and elegant, with bright eyes and clean skin, and the whole person seemed to be otherworldly. When beaten, a cracking sound will be made. Shang Guandandan frowned when she thought about it. In the novels she read recently, there were more and more such references, which affected her reading experience. But being able to use this kind of vocabulary to communicate with modern people in daily communication is enough to show how powerful the Queen Mother is. The Queen Mother has perfectly grown into a modern person like Lu Chang'an. After all, Lu Yuang is also someone who often interacts with netizens on social networks, so she fully understands, and she also knows that Shang Guandandan is fully aware of her embarrassing situation and embarrassment. This made Lu Yuang feel a little ashamed after he had resolved his unhappiness. He held a tissue to his face and rubbed it, then slowly lowered his head and let out a long sigh. Lu Yuang lowered his head and looked at the pattern on his skirt seriously for a minute, and found that Shang Guandandan didn't say anything to ease the strange and shameful atmosphere. Lu Yuang raised his head and glanced at Shang Guandandan. Shang Guandandan was stuffing beef ribs into his mouth, and he didn't seem to be too surprised by such a strange thing. Lu Yuang felt a little relieved. Thinking about it, the reason why he told Shang Guandandan about this matter was because he had a premonition that Shang Guandandan, who was full of mystery, would not have too many ridiculing or joking reactions. As expected of Professor Lu, who was astonishingly talented back then, she was a woman who used taboo science to make her look ageless. Even though her words and deeds seemed childish due to the side effects of rejuvenation, like herself, she had accumulated experience over the years. A woman with the ability to read people's hearts still has a sharp vision, making it impossible to hide the twists and turns hidden in people's hearts. Now that there was this kind of rapport and the feeling that you understand me, Lu Yuang decided not to hide it anymore, to be more honest and not to be hindered by shame. She looked up at Shang Guandandan eating beef ribs. Shang Guandandan even ate differently from ordinary people. When others ate, they would take one bite, chew the food in their mouth slowly, and then take another bite. Shang Guandandan kept stuffing it in little by little, as if he had to fill his mouth with something first. Lu Yuang watched as she stuffed several pieces in. She didn't see her chewing, but her cheeks slowly puffed up. When Shang Guandandan noticed that Lu Yuang was watching her eating, Shang Guandandan calmly stopped stuffing beef ribs into his mouth, and his bulging cheeks immediately returned to their normal appearance. It was impossible to tell how many beef ribs she had stuffed into her mouth just now, and Lu Yuang didn't see her swallowing. She was a little worried that Shang Guandandan would choke, so he quickly poured her a glass of water. Shang Guandandan was already controlled by the beef ribs. He couldn't speak, couldn't open his mouth, and of course couldn't drink water. He nodded to express his praise for Lu Yuang's thoughtfulness. Dan, what should I do in this situation? It's really embarrassing seeing that Shang Guandandan didn't speak. Lu Yuang had no choice but to speak on his own. Fortunately, Lu Chang'an didn't come to Annuan many times, so he still could make do with it at the hotel. But what if he comes more frequently in the future? This is almost certain. Look at how hot they are. Young people are so energetic. The more times you go, the more expensive it is to stay in a hotel. What's more, this is not a solution. The most important thing is that in this situation, it is obviously her home, but she feels like someone has to bow her head under the eaves. What if she objects and offends Lu Chang'an, and this guy refuses to give her facial cream? Or maybe she secretly ate the cream and something unusual happened, so he took the opportunity to torture her? The most important thing was that it was hard for her to explain. Last night, both Lu Chang'an and Annuan went to the study room, and she had to run out. The reason was really hard to explain. They must not be expected to understand it themselves. Who would have thought of such a baffling thing? After speaking, Lu Yuwang looked at Shang Guandandan expectantly. But Shang Guandandan didn't say anything, he just looked at Lu Yuwang without saying a word. You should say something, Lu Yuwang muttered in his heart, and then he was defeated first. It was really embarrassing for two people who were not very familiar with each other to keep looking at each other. What's more, Shang Guandandan seems to be able to look at you for eternity. Those pure black eyes, if you look at them for a long time, are as deep as a black hole in the depths of the universe, sucking you in. Still unable to speak, Shang Guandandan told Lu Yuwang this with his eyes. Then he got up and went to get the meal. He took the largest plate, walked around in a circle, and came back with 2 roasted potatoes the size of pigeon eggs. Do you know Hwasu? Shang Guandandan calmly found the idea. In fact, she was a little afraid to say it, which would make the Queen Mother a little afraid. Of course, it is a very big person, even Emperor Qin and Emperor Wu of Han, whom the Queen Mother revered, are also the figures to be worshipped. Of course I know. The mother of Fuxi and Nuwa, the direct ancestor of Emperor Yan and Emperor Huang, and the ancestor of our nation. What do you want to say? Lu Yuwang didn't know why Shang Guandandan got involved with Hwasu, even though Hwasu was there in public perception. They are not as famous as Emperor Yan, Emperor Huang, Fuxi, and Nuwa, but among the ancient ancestors, they have the highest status. When Hwasu came to Leis for fun, she found a huge footprint in Leis, so she stepped on the footprint, and Hwasu became pregnant, Shang Guandandan said, touching his belly. There were no kids in it, just beef ribs. Of course Lu Yuwang was familiar with these myths and legends, and he would not think that these myths and legends were just nonsense. She just wondered if Shang Guandandan mentioned Hwasu at this time. Did this have anything to do with the problems she was encountering now? Or did Shang Guandandan simply change the topic? In fact, myths like this kind of induction pregnancy exist among all ethnic groups around the world. In some modern interpretations, it is just that some women cheated, or were raped, or became pregnant out of wedlock, in order to maintain their reputation, or various other things. Under other pressures, I have to find an excuse. I think such myths are not necessarily false. Ancient myths cannot be judged simply by modern people's common sense thinking. During World War II, the US military landed on the Melanesian Islands, which were completely isolated from modern civilization. The local indigenous people saw the US military flying on board big birds and sea beasts descended from the sky and came ashore from the sea, holding iron rods in their hands that threatened to kill anyone. In the eyes of the indigenous people, these American troops were the images of gods, demons, bodhisattvas, and immortals in our myths and legends. Lu Yuwang has always been interested in myths and legends. In her opinion, many myths and legends are just records and descriptions made by backward civilizations within the scope of their own understanding due to their own limitations when an advanced civilization emerged. They are not just made up. Random fabrications are mostly based on facts. Shang Guandandan opened her mouth slightly and listened to Lu Yuwang's words. She was not interested in discussing other myths and legends with Lu Yuwang, or the meaning of the stories behind myths and legends, because in Lu Yuwang's eyes they were myths, and Shang Guandandan, I feel like I'm telling real people. Many years passed after Hwasu became pregnant through induction. 12 years. Lu Yuwang quickly added the data he knew. After Hwasu became pregnant through induction, 12 years later. Shang Guandandan continued, she gave birth to Fuxi. Later people recorded that Fuxi had the body of a snake and the head of a human. It was also said that he adopted the body of a snake. The body, the head of a camel, the horns of a stag, the eyes of a tiger, the scales of a golden carp, the legs of a crocodile, the claws of an eagle, the tail of some kind of big fish, and the beard of an immortal create the image of our national dragon, and the descendants of the dragon, that's where it comes from. This is a story that is familiar to all primary school students. Lu Yuwang listened patiently to Shang Guandandan's talk about myths. Lu Yuang's major involves the study of traditional culture. She knows all the versions of these myths, and the related origins and research, so she can publish a book. Shang Guandandan glanced at Zhou Dongdong next to him. After Zhou Dongdong entered the barrier, ordinary people could not feel her. However, Shang Guandandan was very human after all, and he caught Zhou Dongdong out of the barrier. Zhou Dongdong, do you know dragons? I know, Brother Chang'an has always wanted to eat the 12 zodiac animals, but he has never eaten a dragon. Sun Wukong has eaten a dragon, because Sun Wukong is more powerful than dragons, Zhou Dongdong said with some pride, because she is also Sun Wukong, the kind of person who has not yet eaten a dragon. The grown-up child Sun Wukong. Shang Guandandan chatted a few words with Zhou Dongdong about dragons and Sun Wukong. Lu Yuang was not in the mood to have breakfast, but he still finished a small bowl of noodles during this time. Maybe Zhou Dongdong and Shang Guandandan are indeed very cute, but it is really difficult to communicate with them if they talk about serious matters. Easy. Zhou Dongdong is okay, he is a child after all, and this Shang Guandandan, I won't go into details. The sequelae of this rejuvenation are really serious. His thinking is off topic, and the topic changes as wildly as a child's thoughts. Because you said that elementary school students are familiar with it, so I'm going to give Zhou Dongdong a test. After Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong chatted, he explained it to Lu Yuang. Dongdong is quite smart, Lu Yuang said sincerely. Smart children are called sister, Lu Yuang. Only stupid children are called auntie. Those who are hopelessly stupid, for example, there is a grandson of a colleague who is called sister Lu Yuang. Lu Yu looked at her grandma. When that child grows up and takes the exam for Hunan University, if she falls into the hands of Lu Yuang, she will definitely not be able to get the credits. It is common for a woman to hold grudges for more than 10 years. It is not considered narrow-minded, right? Fuxi was born with the upper body of a human and the lower body of a snake. This matter is defined as a myth and legend. What do you think? Shang Guandandan asked, continuing the original topic. Maybe the legs were not separated when they were born. Just like in India now, some people still worship conjoined twins as gods, Lu Yuang thought for a while and said. Shang Guandandan didn't know much about India and conjoined twins, but according to Shang Guandandan's knowledge, this was certainly not the case. In Shang Guandandan's time, many stories were still recognized as real history. Most of these stories are now regarded as myths and legends by many people. Then what do you think about Fuxi inventing the image of the dragon? Why did he invent such an image that combines the characteristics of various animals? In many online novels that Shang Guandandan has read, dragons appear very frequently. Shang Guandandan also has a certain understanding of how modern people view dragon. What do I think? Lu Yuang felt a little confused. Although Shang Guandandan's thinking was wild and unconstrained, this why was indeed something that most people would not think about, but it was not without the significance and value of research. Fuxi's lower body is described as a snake. That's because before Fuxi described the image of a dragon, the closest thing to his lower body was that of a snake, Shang Guandandan said casually. Just like in a certain period, writing was the privilege of the powerful class. Monopolizing writing means monopolizing knowledge and power, cutting off the channels for class advancement. Some secrets and truths can only be known after reaching a certain status. As the Empress Dowager of the Empire, Shang Guandandan knows many, many secrets and truths. There is no problem in letting Lu Yuang know a little bit of the truth that modern people regard as myths and legends. You mean, Fuxi's lower body does not look like a snake, but a dragon? He is not the one with the head of a snake and the body of a human as we always thought, but the head of a dragon and the body of a human. Lu Yuang was surprised by such a statement. The story passed down from legend. If you think about it a little more deeply, there is such an amazing twist. Shang Guandandan nodded, picked up a baked potato, blew on it, tore off the skin and stuffed it into his mouth. The roasted potatoes were very fragrant, but a little sticky, so Shang Guandandan took another sip of juice. The juice was delicious, so I took another sip. Shang Guandandan wanted to play cards in the morning and didn't want to get dizzy, so he didn't bring an awl filled with champagne water. By the way, I remembered it. We generally say that Fuxi created the image of the dragon, but what you said is the description. Fuxi, you mean that Fuxi himself is a dragon, or Fuxi has seen a dragon? Lu Yuang was a little bit confused. Said excitedly. Although the discussion was about myths and legends, Lu Yuang had a feeling of studying mysticism to discover the truth of history, uncovering secrets in human history. She didn't take it seriously, she just found it interesting. What's more, it is really possible that there is such a similar situation. The US military is described in myths and legends, and the people who wrote the myths are the indigenous people of Melanesia. The point is, Huasu got pregnant through induction. This kind of thing happens all the time. What you need to worry about now is whether you will get pregnant through induction. Shang Guandandan reminded Lu Yuang to pay attention to this. This is what Shang Guandandan has always said, while trying to tell her the point. It's a pity that Lu Yuang doesn't seem to be as powerful as Zhou Shuling said. Shang Guandandan told her the key points so concisely and clearly, but Lu Yuang kept focusing on the wrong place. Ah, Lu Yuang looked at Shang Guandandan in astonishment. You took Fuxi and Long and talked about it for a long time. Finally, you told me that the key point was that Huasu got pregnant through induction? Lu Yuang came back to his senses, and now he was complaining about Shang Guandandan's elusive thoughts and expressions. The point was that Lu Yuang could also be pregnant through induction? How can it be? Telling myths may be the truth, but that's just a researcher doing interesting research. If it happens to you, then it's a myth. Impossible. It can't be true. No, how is such a thing possible? If you want to say pregnancy through induction, there was some special method in that era to achieve an effect similar to in vitro fertilization, or surrogacy. I still believe it. I don't believe in pregnancy through induction. Lu Yuang quickly shook his head vigorously. After shaking his head, Lu Yuang felt a little dizzy, then felt some discomfort in his stomach, and even had a conflict with vomiting. Oops. No, this is a psychological effect. Lu Yuang forced himself to calm down. As soon as he heard that he was pregnant through induction, he had a psychological suggestion, which made him associate a little vomiting with pregnancy. I don't believe it. Lu Yuang took a deep breath and shook his head firmly. This is just a guess on my part. Shang Guandandan had no intention of forcing others to believe her. For the sake of this sumptuous breakfast, she was willing to tell Lu Yuang these things, which was a great honor. Except for Lu Chang'an, there is no one in this world who is qualified to make Shang Guandandan tell him some things and try hard to make him believe in him. For example, Shang Guandandan has been trying hard for a long time to convince Lu Chang'an that she is too weak to do housework. As of today, he still doesn't believe it, and Shang Guandandan is still working hard, proving it by saying that he can't lift a big kettle or a big kitchen knife. After breakfast, Lu Yuang sent Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong downstairs. One of the annoying things about this hotel is that you have to go to the elevator 3 times to get from the hotel room to the outside, and you have to go to the elevator twice to get out of the restaurant. Lu Yuang was afraid these 2 little people are lost. Lu Yuang watched Shang Guandandan and Zhou Dongdong push the electric scooters, then looked around, opened the map on his phone with some guilt, and started searching for self-service vending machines for adult products. She originally wanted to place an order with a merchant on a takeout app, which would deliver it quickly, but this kind of hotel only allowed the takeaway guy to come to the hotel lobby at most. The search results show that there are quite a few self-service vending machines for adult products nearby, and the nearest one is only 50 meters away. Lu Yuang walked over according to the map, only to find that the self-service vending machine was next to a postal newsstand. There was an old man sitting in the newsstand, holding a purple sand teapot. He saw Lu Yuang at a glance, and immediately locked eyes with him with piercing eyes. He shook his head and muttered something. Lu Yuang left. She didn't want others to see her picking and choosing in this kind of self-service vending machine. The adult products sold there included condoms, pregnancy test sticks, HIV test strips, etc. She knew so clearly. Of course she learned about it when she prepared safety supplies for Anyuan for the first time. It seems that when I bought it for Anyuan, the merchant delivered it in a sealed bag. There was no label on the outside as to what was inside, right? Lu Yuang had an idea and consulted the merchant on the takeout app. After learning that privacy would be protected when shipping, she still placed the order and then returned to the hotel to prepare to receive the goods. In an uneasy mood, Lu Yuang searched for some symptoms of pregnancy, and when he looked at it, he felt that he was pregnant. This is similar to when he feels uncomfortable, and after searching, he finds out that he has a terminal illness, and he can prepare for the funeral. Experience. After waiting for a while, Lu Yuang finally got the pregnancy test stick he ordered and tested it several times in the bathroom. Looking at the negative label, Lu Yuang breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, he suddenly realized that he was really out of his mind. Why did he take the induction of pregnancy seriously? Shang Guandandan, I believed your lies. You are truly worthy of being Lu Chang'an's mother. Lu Yuang patted his head. Professor Lu, a smart and astute professor, was so fooled by her that he almost believed it. Think about Shang Guandandan's nodding that feels exactly like Lu Chang'an's, the indifferent and calm attitude revealed in his words and deeds, and his ability to deceive people. Even if Lu Chang'an denies that Shang Guandandan is his mother, Lu Chang'an Yuang firmly doesn't believe it. But now the matter is still unresolved. Lu Yuang no longer has the fear of pregnancy, but she has no clues from Shang Guandandan about what really worries her. Did Shang Guandandan not want to tell her, or did Shang Guandandan not know what was going on? Lu Yuang couldn't judge this either. The other party's words and deeds seemed a bit childish, but when he really thought about the problem, he still had depth, and it was not easy for others to see what he was thinking. This was the only choice for now. Lu Yuang checked out of the hotel with some annoyance. The most important thing today was to go to the car show to see the car. When I woke up in the morning, the foggy white light shone on the windows. The light strip in the study was still on, but it lost the warm color at night and turned into slightly yellowish oranges inlaid on the ceiling. The decoration of the study room still maintains the style of nearly 20 years ago. In fact, the decoration style often changes very slowly. One generation often only loves a fixed style, and they have to wait until the next generation of the family owns their own house. May get changes. If the houses of the next generation are still provided by the previous generation, then the final decoration style may also be continued. Economic power determines aesthetic power. This phenomenon can be as small as a family or as large as a country. Powerful countries have greater cultural output. Right to speak. Of course, Lu Chang'an's final decision on aesthetic power lies with himself. He only makes fine adjustments with the changes of the times, but his essential core remains unchanged. Sometimes I like being a little chubby, sometimes I like being tall, sometimes I prefer being petite, sometimes I think being strong is good, and sometimes I even think being a woman is good. The warmth in the arms is especially worth appreciating. In every era and every country, there is a woman who can attract the attention of all citizens. What they look like can often represent some of the spiritual outlook and temperament of that era and that country. Lu Chang'an feels that Anyuan is the unity of people's aesthetics in this era. Her youth, her liveliness, and her vitality are as fresh as this era, and the future is promising. Lu Chang'an squinted his eyes and looked at the window. Waking up in the morning in the south is always very comfortable. He stretched his arms out of the bed and felt slightly cold. The heat on his skin quickly dissipated and was replaced by a cool feeling, as if he had accumulated all night. The restlessness also dissipated. The quilt was warm, and my body had completely adapted to the temperature inside. It felt like the sheets and duvet cover were rubbing together, and I didn't want to move at all. It felt extremely comfortable to remain motionless. Occasionally, there were branches trembling in the wind outside the window, scraping the glass and leaving shadows. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand from the quilt and gently held in Nuan's round shoulders. It was as if she could still feel the unique smoothness when she applied the bath foam on her shoulders after taking a bath together last night. Her delicate skin had a warmer fragrance than fine nephrite. Just feeling the comfort of the palm of his hand touching her skin made people feel extra energetic in the morning. A heat accumulated in Lu Chang'an's body and then flowed to his lower abdomen, making him let out a long breath. Morning is a good time for exercise and exercise. Lu Chang'an is going to waken Nuan up and go out for a run together. Lu Chang'an turned his head and looked at Nuan, who seemed to be sleeping soundly. The corners of her mouth were slightly raised, with a relaxed and beautiful feeling of sleep. Her eyelashes were intertwined up and down, her eyebrows were spread out softly, and the straight bridge of her nose was bright red and moist. The lips together formed the stunning face of the beautiful girl. At 8:30 in the morning, Lu Chang'an came out of the study first. And Nuan followed him and looked around. After taking a look at Professor Liu's room door, which was still closed, and Nuan quickly walked into her room. She planned to wait for Professor Liu to get up. From now on, when she comes out again, no matter Professor Liu believes it or not, she will always come out as if she slept in her room last night. Lu Chang'an didn't get up last night to eat the salted egg yolk, butter and meat mixed with rice he brought back from the Tandoor barbecue restaurant. In the spirit of frugality and to avoid waste, Lu Chang'an opened the refrigerator and took a look and felt that the mixed rice was in good condition. In fact, the main reason is that this kind of bibimbap has more oil and the rice grains are more elastic. It is not the soft rice grains with too much water. It can still be eaten if it is reheated overnight. This is a large portion, and it can be divided into 3 small portions for breakfast. En Nuan and Lu Yuwang are not comparable to Zhou Shuling, Shang Guandandan, Zhou Dongdong, and others. They don't have a big appetite for breakfast, so they can just eat whatever they want. His mouth felt dry just from eating the bibimbap, so Lu Chang'an was going to make a shrimp soup with bamboo shoots and a pot of scented tea. Lu Yuwang did not renew his contract with Takanoning, but he couldn't finish the F4 scented tea given by the manufacturer in a while. The taste of these scented teas is not as good as other teas in Lu Yuwang's collection, but they can't be wasted. Drink more of them and the taste will be good enough. The Gao family are relatively down-to-earth, and Gao Yenang's micro-business route and products are still acceptable. Thinking of Gao Yenang, Lu Chang'an thought of Gao Yenang's fiery red Ferrari. Today he and Lu Yuwang are going to the auto show. There are many luxury cars at the auto show. As the first major auto show after the new year, compared to the discounts in March and April, it should still be a more affordable time to buy a car. Lu Yuwang is not the kind of person who cares about discounts and gifts. He goes to car shows to look at cars and buy cars. The main reason is to save trouble and not have to go to 4 stores one after another. My mother is not in the room and Nuan waited in the room for a while and found that there was still no movement next door. Generally speaking, Professor Liu would not sleep in so late during the holidays. I went to the next door and looked around. There was no one on Lu Yuwang's bed, and the electric blanket was still on, so there was no way to judge how long she had been up from the warmth of the quilt. Going out again, Lu Chang'an was a little confused. You didn't sing loudly last night. How can you still influence her in the study? I feel that it is more likely to influence Professor Ling's house next door. And Nuan was taken aback, covered her mouth and blushed. How could I forget that the study room next door is the study room of Zizi's family? Next to the study, not the bedroom. Lu Chang'an reminded her not to worry about the conduction of sound affecting the sleep of the next door family. No, you don't know. Aunt Ling disliked Professor Han for snoring at night, and she slept in a separate room with Professor Han. After Zhizi went to school, Aunt Ling slept in Zhizi's room. Zhizi came back, in sleep in the study, and Nuan patted her forehead and quickly thought carefully about the movement last night. It didn't seem big. Haha, Lu Chang'an sneered, God's way is reincarnation, no one will be spared. Lu Chang'an remembered that in linen, Han's Zhizi, the light bulb, once made Lu Chang'an want to hang her on the bent-necked willow tree outside the window. If I could repay her for the sleepless night last night, it would be considered a return favor, which would be even. You're still talking about this, how many times have I fallen for you? And Nuan hummed with a blushing face. She and her boyfriend had a very high level of tacit understanding. Looking at his sneer, she knew he was talking about it again. It's about linen. On the contrary, Lu Chang'an continued to boil water to cook dried bamboo shoots, and generously forgave Han's Zhizi. He was an open-minded person. The point is, my mom, where has she gone? And Nuan looked back at her mother's bedroom. Lu Chang'an thought for a moment, his eyebrows gradually raised, and he turned to look at Nuan seriously. And Nuan shook her head from side to side, opened her mouth slightly, and waited for Lu Chang'an's analysis and answer. I think the point is not where your mother has gone, but that you are by my side and eating breakfast with me. Lu Chang'an laughed. Lu Yuang is not a child, so he has to look for her when she disappears. And Nuan twisted her body and leaned into Lu Chang'an's arms. She didn't expect that after being together for so long, everything that was supposed to happen happened. He didn't feel tired, and he still opened his mouth to talk about love. My boyfriend is good-looking and handsome, and even if he talks about earthy love stories, girls still like him very much. Today, Lu Chang'an did not kick Nuan out of the kitchen, but made breakfast with her. After getting tired of it for a while, Lu Yuang opened the door and went home after making the scented tea. Mom, where have you been? And Nuan asked in a normal tone while observing Lu Yuang's expression. Lu Yuang stretched out as if nothing had happened. I was actually a little hesitant. After all, I bought the car and drove it for so long, and I have feelings for it. I suddenly wanted to change the car. I didn't know if it was necessary, so I drove it again. After walking around the city for a while, I thought seriously about whether I should change my car. It turns out that this is the case. And Nuan breathed a sigh of relief. Buying a car is not a trivial matter, and it is right to consider it carefully. Then what is your final decision? Lu Chang'an asked. Lu Yuang had to ask him to accompany him to the auto show. Unfortunately, he was not a netizen on car forums and postbars and did not understand cars. In fact, it is better to go to a fishing bar to find an old man than to seek consultation and advice from him. Apart from being unable to catch fish, the old man in the fishing bar is very easy to consult on car purchases. Buy it. Lu Yuang bent down and took off his shoes. My dad has paid me. And Nuan shook her head slightly. Of course she had no objection, but it would be best to go to the auto show, because the auto show is at the end of Metro Line 2, where there is a large exhibition center. The design goal of the newly built convention and exhibition center is to be able to host international-level super-large exhibitions and activities. Even a large-scale auto show will not contract all the venues. So where the exhibition was held today, in addition to the car show, some venues also hosted an animation exhibition. This was discovered by Nuan after she accidentally saw her good friend Bai Hui talking about it in the space. The first two chapters don't have many words, but this chapter is the real outburst of thanks and reward. Okay, I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 808. Han's Zhizi is Nuan's best friend, like a biological sister, so of course Nuan is not completely clear about what Han's Zhizi did and where she went during the winter vacation. Bai Hui is Nuan's good friend, so what Bai Hui did during this winter vacation and where he went, Nuan tried his best to control all the developments that he could know. Nuan is a person who is nostalgic and values relationships. Out of nostalgia for her high school days and concern for her high school classmates, Nuan will pay more attention to their classmates' activities. Although she cannot attend some class reunions for some reasons, she will pay attention to them. Chat with everyone in class groups and other places, and look at the party photos everyone posted. Therefore, Nuan was not present at the gathering of classmates at Gao Dui's house during the winter vacation, but he knew the scene very well, including who was there and what activities were going on. Nuan values his old classmates so much. She clearly remembered that during that party, Bai Hui recorded a dancing video on the lake at Gao Dui's house. The dance video was posted on Site 13. In addition to the main dance video, there was also a behind-the-scenes clip of her dancing at a class reunion. Everyone who appeared in the clip knew Nuan, including Lu Chang'an of course. Lu Chang'an was inconspicuous in the footage, he just passed by in a hurry, like a random shot from the perspective of a normal classmate. There are quite a lot of comments on Bai Fenfa's videos, even if they are only behind the scenes. There is also a little brother who exclaims how handsome he is that the jungler LXH of the DSB team, and so on. There are already several classmates in the class. More or less famous on the internet. The handsome little brother, of course, refers to Lu Chang'an. Thinking of someone calling her boyfriend little brother, Nuan always feels a strange sense of disobedience. Maybe it's because Lu Chang'an has nothing to do with little in any way. Nuan laughed twice when she thought of this, and then seriously changed her attention. She was analyzing the business. This footage was probably taken by Miao Yingying, and nothing could be seen from it, but Nuan always felt that the video of Bai Hui dancing on the boat in the lake was a little different. What's the difference? Nuan observed carefully for a long time. Videos are just videos. Even with the so-called Blu-ray standard, it is impossible to zoom in and observe to find more details like photos taken by high-pixel cameras. So Nuan looked at Bai Hui's other dance videos and compared them. After watching several dance videos, Nuan finally caught the clues and understood what she felt was different. When performing the self-choreographed dance of The Legend of White Snake on the Lake, Bai Hui frequently looked in a direction that was not where the camera was. It is because of this that this choreography has much less of a feeling that she is discharging electricity towards the audience. This is also the reason why some commentators commented that Teacher Bai's dance this time is particularly ethereal. Ethereal. Mostly because of the wandering eyes, always looking to the side, and being distracted. Dog-licking praises are always given at a tricky angle and without any blind spots. Just why do you keep looking in that direction? Haha, because there must be someone standing in that direction whose reaction she is very concerned about. Nuan can only analyze such details casually. There is no evidence and cannot be used as a target for criticism. Relatively speaking, you only need to pay a little attention to the information that Bai Hui will be a guest at the comic show today, and you don't need to analyze and search carefully. Nuan also wanted to visit. She signed up for the home dance club last semester. Although she didn't participate in many activities, she had begun to become interested in act culture. It was normal to join in the fun at the comic expo. I'll put on my makeup and change my clothes first. After breakfast, Nuan cleared the table and went back to the room. Lu Yuang also wanted to change clothes, so Lu Chang'an went to the study room to open the window for ventilation, folded the quilt, and tidied the sheets. At this time, there was a knock on the door, and Lu Chang'an went to open the door. Hans Hizi came in, holding a grapefruit the size of a volleyball. The grapefruit is very big, and there are very few such big grapefruits. Morning, macho Hans Hizi greeted Lu Chang'an. Morning, fierce, weak chicken Lu Chang'an nodded. Hans Hizi had seen Lu Chang'an's skill in rubbing porcelain bowls with his hands, so he accepted the title of weak chicken without any intention of refuting, and went to Nuan's room. Hans Hizi had a class reunion today and didn't have time to follow Nuan around. When she came to Nuan's room, she saw An Nuan staring at a separate wardrobe with bright eyes. In the wardrobe is An Nuan's treasured skirt, which Lu Chang'an personally made, a gorgeous Song Shigi veiled overskirt with Song Dynasty custom-themed patterns. In the final analysis, war is a war of people, so it is people who really determine the outcome of a war. Weapons and equipment are important, but not the most important. The army that An Nuan admires is the only army in the world that has defeated the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, and has a profound understanding of this truth. But there is also a saying that if a worker wants to do his job well, he must first sharpen his tools, so equipment is also very important. An Nuan's opponents are very powerful. In terms of the hardware of people that determines the outcome of the war, An Nuan does not have much big advantage. Then equipment has a great influence at this time. Just like Qin Yan'an had strong fat capital and held the key as a sharp weapon, he eventually lost to the capital. He was not so rich, but held the house capital. An Nuan, this big killer. An Nuan took a screenshot of Qin Yan'an's defeated expression from the video, and she still occasionally takes it out to reflect on it. An Nuan decided to wear the Song Shigi outfit today, and she might not meet Bai Fen. It was mainly because An Nuan wanted to wear it, and all other reasons were incidental. I just discovered that the laces on the chest of this skirt can be untied, which means Lu Chang'an designed it at the beginning. When you are flatter, you can tighten it to support the breasts. When you are bigger, you can untie it to look sexier. Hans Hizzy admired with some jealousy. Of course a best friend can be jealous of a best friend, but real best friends are jealous openly and not secretly. An Nuan is no longer what she used to be. Hans Hizzy knows this. Having a boyfriend is really a surprise after 3 days of separation. I never thought that one day, I would become a girl who could let the bright moon shine on me. An Nuan was very proud. Hans Hizzy raised the grapefruit in her hand. Where did you get such a big grapefruit? An Nuan laughed in surprise. I wonder if Hans Hizzy meant it? It's a bit exaggerated to be so big. It's a whole row of balls. Is it big? An Nuan nodded. Hans Hizzy took a knife and sat beside him to peel the grapefruit, while watching An Nuan put on makeup, do her hair and change clothes. Lu Chang'an waited in the living room for a while, but Lu Yuwang packed up earlier than An Nuan. She urged An Nuan several times before she was finally able to set off. It's so beautiful today, Lu Chang'an admired sincerely, and immediately used 100 idioms, 10 ancient poems, and many extremely high-level metaphors to describe An Nuan's current beauty. An Nuan was a little shy, and at the same time glanced at Professor Lu. Professor Lu was a little proud, and his expression was quite self-satisfied, as if look whose daughter this is, but when he met An Nuan's eyes, he immediately turned his head away. Snorted, smelly. If there are any on-site recruitment activities for car models, you can participate. Maybe the overbearing president will be fascinated by you and give your mother a car, Hans Hizzy said positively. After the model ban, those who have no lower limit to attract people's attention will model shows are hard to find anymore, but there are countermeasures and policies, and car models often appear on the stand as part-time sales staff. Although there are no more large-scale outfits like before, tall beauties still have a certain eye-catching effect, especially for many manufacturers who habitually feel that they cannot show off the high-end atmosphere of their brands without having a lot of beauties at their booths. Upgrade. Ah, my feet hurt a little, Lu Chang'an said suddenly. What's wrong? An Nuan quickly lowered his head and glanced at Lu Chang'an's feet. It shouldn't be, he is a Superman. I was pressed down by the track just now. Lu Chang'an looked at Hans Hizzy and said. Hans Hizzy was stunned for a moment, and finally realized it. She almost jumped up with anger. She did gain a little weight during the winter vacation because of eating too much, but that was also within the normal range. If she was a little fatter, she would be in the category of slightly fat. Lu Chang'an's mouth really made people laugh. Want to tear it apart? An Nuan couldn't help laughing. Seeing that Hans Hizzy was about to hit someone, she quickly broke up the fight and sent Hans Hizzy back. She knew in her heart that it was Hans Hizzy who had probably offended Lu Chang'an by asking An Nuan to apply for a car model. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 809. There were 4 people who officially set out for the auto show. Their car knowledge was stuck in the last century. Lu Chang'an, who prefers tractors and heavy trucks, provided car purchase consultation. He dressed up in a fancy dress and his legs were longer than the car model. But the drunkard did not care about the warmth of the wine and relied on his own efforts. Lu Yuang, who used his savings and the 300,000 yuan from his father to buy a car, and Professor Ling, who looked sleepy but insisted on accompanying Lu Yuang throughout the whole process. Among many friends who are as close as brothers and sisters, if one party feels that the other party is a fool, they will often be very worried about the other party, and will often worry more about the other party, or even take care of them like an old lady. This is what Professor Ling is worried about. Lu Chang'an and An Nuan are juniors after all. Lu Yuang wants to buy a more expensive car. Professor Ling feels that he must check it for her, or pay attention to whether the seller has set up traps. In fact, she didn't know much about cars, but Professor Ling felt that she was smarter and good at observing people's emotions. In this regard, she was much better than Lu Yuang. Many times, Lu Yuang would feel that others were just saying nice things to her. A good person would not lie to her. Of course, this is Professor Ling's view of Lu Yuang. Lu Yuang thinks that he is not like this. In many aspects, Lu Yuang is better than Professor Ling. In Lu Yuang's eyes, Professor Ling is a bit neglected. Professor Ling had 2 Mercedes-Benzes at home, but she told Lu Yuang not to buy a Mercedes-Benz. From the car purchase, after-sales maintenance, and daily use, she felt that she had accumulated a lot of unpleasantness, and she didn't want Lu Yuang to experience it again. Lu Yuang didn't want to buy it either. This brand was cheap, not as good as her Volvo. It was expensive, and she couldn't afford it. She was a middle-aged girl and felt that there weren't many beautiful styles, which were not suitable for someone under 30 years old like her. A woman, she looks super young, doesn't she? To judge a person's age, of course, we look at appearance and appearance. Is it to look at someone else's ID card? Can I give my ID card to anyone else? Absurd. Zhizhi came home just now and said you called her a tank. What did that mean? Professor Ling sat in the passenger seat and turned around to ask Lu Chang'an behind him. She's angry. It's just that she's a little fatter than when she was in high school. Lu Chang'an smiled. In fact, Hans Hizzy's jumping look was quite cute. Then I can be considered a tank, right? Professor Ling said a little worriedly. Her figure is actually taller and plumper than Hans Hizzy. After all, she is a middle-aged mature woman. It is easier to accumulate fat in daily life, not to mention that she also wants to maintain a lower abdomen. Soft and meaty feeling. And Nuan couldn't help laughing. Aunt Ling, you definitely don't count. This word is not a good word. Lu Chang'an did not directly say that Zhizhi is a tank. It is a bit too much to directly say that others are tanks. He is, in short, it's not that excessive, just a little teasing between acquaintances. And Nuan felt that Hans Hizzy really had nothing to do with this word. Hans Hizzy and Professor Ling had very similar bodies. They were both the type with some fat but not bloated, and they felt like they were full of fat on their waist, abdomen and thighs. She also has a top-notch figure, a different type of figure than her own, and Nuan thought realistically. If you are a tank, take off your tracks and put them on my car. Let's see who dares to look down on my car and run it over. Lu Yuang said about the last time he came back from the airport, he was despised by the female driver of the Audi A5. I'm a little unhappy about the situation. I drive a broken A5 and look down on the Volvo others drive. Lu Yuang recalled a TV series in which a female driver had a collision with a tank. The female driver reluctantly entangled the soldier who got off the tank, and eventually developed a relationship. If something like this happens in reality, I don't know how tough a woman is to be able to do such a thing. Anyway, if Lu Yuwang sees a tank on the road, he must stop and wait for it to pass by. He will be scared just by looking at it. By the way, buy an SUV, Professor Ling said with a flash of inspiration. Many women don't like to drive big cars, but it is true that big cars can give them a sense of security. Yeah, small and medium-sized ones, not large cars. It's easy to get into trouble if you park a large car, and Nuan also thought it was good. Lu Yuwang didn't refute Nuan's words. He thought about it. Then he found that Lu Chang'an didn't say anything, so he asked, Chang'an, what do you think? Professor Ling is right. Lu Chang'an nodded. He was really just a companion. There is a big difference in the thinking of men and women. When men buy cars, they like to talk about the data configuration, advantages and disadvantages of a bunch of cars, etc. Women often buying a car is like buying clothes, look at the style and color. Lu Chang'an had to give advice seriously, but in the end he couldn't help but say, wow, this car is so cute. Arriving at the convention and exhibition center in a lively manner, the road was a bit congested, and the convention and exhibition center was the end of line 2. Lu Yuwang regretted driving here because he knew he should have taken the subway. Finding that the convention and exhibition center was too big and there was a long distance from the exit of the subway station to the entrance of the auto show, Lu Yuwang said that it was a good thing that he didn't listen to Nuan and take the subway. Nuan didn't argue with Lu Yuwang, as parents do. She paid attention to the entrance of the comic exhibition, and sure enough she saw Bai Hui's poster. Bai Hui is a heavyweight guest even at such large-scale brand comic exhibitions, let alone at a large-scale brand comic exhibition. At the comic exhibition held locally in Juncha. It's really good. When passing by the poster, Nuan pointed at the poster and said to Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an looked at the poster, then at the well-dressed Nuan, and then he realized, he should be watching cartoons with Zhou Dongdong at home today. Why are you here? Isn't that your high school classmate? Lu Yuwang looked a little surprised. That girl named Bai Hui, right? It's so beautiful. Professor Ling also turned his head and looked at the poster. Is this Nuan's high school classmate? Is he a big star? Such a big poster is bigger than others. She is indeed big. Nuan hummed. This girl is really good looking, and her legs are so long. To be honest, she wasn't so outstanding in high school, Lu Yuwang said with emotion. Her legs are almost 2 meters tall, and Nuan felt that Lu Yuwang spared no effort when attacking his daughter, and he also did the same when praising others. The legs on Bai Hui's poster were obviously elongated and trimmed. Can't you see it? Fortunately, Lu Chang'an closed his eyes after taking a look at the poster, as if he didn't want to pay attention or get involved in this topic at all. I don't need to pull, my legs are 2 meters long in this position. And Nuan leaned against Lu Chang'an diagonally, then straightened the instep of one foot and held the phone high. Tilt shot. After taking the photo, she looked at the photo and cropped off the upper body, leaving only the legs in the whole picture. They looked extremely long. And Nuan showed off to Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling with satisfaction. That girl has really big breasts. Lu Yuwang didn't even look at her. And Nuan has grown for the second time, and it doesn't seem to be as good as others, Professor Ling also admired. And huffed and threw himself into Lu Chang'an's arms. He stopped talking to these annoying adults. Parents are like this. Other people's children is what they have talked about since they were young. Lu Chang'an smiled, raised his hands and put them around Nuan's back. He lowered his head to smell the fragrance in her hair and sniffed it. Many times, men want to hold the woman they love, and they just like to smell her like this. The smell in the hair is refreshing. In front of Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling, Nuan looked a little childish, but in his mind were alluring images of being intimate with her. Childishness and seductive lust seemed to be mixed together. giving him a different kind of charm. En Nuan raised her head and glanced at Lu Chang'an, and found that he was looking at her with gentle eyes, and she laughed again. Everyone was disgusted, but her boyfriend was lovable. I don't think you need to enter the venue. There are a lot of cars outside. Lu Yuwang looked around and saw that some manufacturers had rented some locations outside the venue to hold promotional activities. There is also a club that brings in all kinds of luxury cars to help out, including Rolls-Royce, Bentley, Ferrari and other familiar luxury brands. Next to the luxury car, there is an anchor talking about those cars, whose car this is, how did this license plate come from, how awesome so and so is in Junsha, and a woman who looks like an internet celebrity is gesticulating, assigning others with familiarity, full of the aura of the upper class. It is breathtaking. The eyes looking at them are full of envy, and the inspiration for struggle arises spontaneously. Mom, that car is Mr. Gao's Ferrari. En Nuan saw a red Ferrari and immediately said to Lu Yuwang excitedly. Lu Yuwang glared fiercely at En Nuan, who was worried about the world being in chaos. People said that her daughter was carrying little cotton-padded jacket, a hot water bottle, while his own was definitely a worn-out cotton-padded jacket with air leakage and an ice pack in winter. What's going on in there? Professor Ling smelled the gossip and looked back at En Nuan, hoping En Nuan would tell her something. Don't listen to her arrangement. Lu Yuwang tried to stop Professor Ling from gossiping, and then said to En Nuan, how do you know that is Gao Yanang's Ferrari? Are you familiar with him? Lu Yuwang didn't believe that it was Gao Yanang's Ferrari. Although Gao Yanang's model was rare in Junsha, it was not the only one. Junsha couldn't compare with the proliferation of luxury cars in first-tier cities. At night, in the bar street of Jifang West, it was still he could see a lot of them, but Lu Yuwang wasn't familiar with them and didn't pay much attention to them. The sports cars were the same color, so it was difficult to distinguish their brands. When he saw a red sports car, he thought it was similar to a Ferrari. The same should be true for En Nuan, so Lu Yuwang didn't think En Nuan could be sure that it was Gao Yanang's Ferrari. I remember the license plate number. It's easy to remember a number like that. En Nuan was indeed lying. Of course she didn't remember the license plate number, but she was sure Lu Yuwang didn't remember it either. There was no evidence to prove that En Nuan was lying. What's going on, Mr. Gao? Ha, Lao Lu, spring is here. Professor Ling stared at the red car. How did you speak in front of the child? Lu Yuwang was very depressed. It would be fine if Gao Yanang was about the same age as him. Although he would not agree, at least being pursued by his peers would seem more normal and there would be no shame. Lu Yuwang self-certified that she was a young woman between the ages of 18 and 30, but after all, she lived in society and naturally had an age for social certification. There was nothing she could do about it. Being pursued by a man who is so much younger than you is inevitably a shame, just like some middle-aged and elderly male teachers in school are pursued by female students, and it would be embarrassing if word spread. Women, especially women like Lu Yuwang, receive more attention and more criticism. Chang'an, you must know, please tell me. Professor Ling asked Lu Chang'an again, because Lu Chang'an was not afraid of Lu Yuwang, and was not threatened by Lu Yuwang. Lu Yuwang was tortured to death by Lu Chang'an in the hotel. 1,000 push-ups were arranged for Lu Yuwang, with no pity at all, and no care about the identity of Lu Yuwang's prospective mother-in-law. Lu Yuwang stared at Lu Chang'an with threatening eyes, while En Nuan supported Lu Chang'an with encouraging eyes. Mr. Gao is the CEO of the company that Professor Lu used to work with. He pursued Professor Lu but was rejected, Lu Chang'an said briefly. That's it. Professor Ling felt that it was more than that. What's there to gossip about? There is no deep or passionate content at all. Not only 800 people who pursued Lu Yuwang were rejected, but only 1,000. Lu Chang'an nodded. Why should he care about the age gap? Is it necessary to care? Totally unnecessary. En Nuan sighed, her boyfriend defended his mother-in-law to be, is there any problem? What can an Nuan say? I had no choice but to move my gentle gaze away and look out the window. Lu Yuang smiled, but she didn't expect Lu Chang'an to be considerate, which was better than that leaky and torn cotton-padded jacket. If the gossip doesn't reach your ears, who doesn't feel itchy and always wants to say something? Professor Ling was about to continue digging when he saw a hunky car driving over. Compared with today's young people, Professor Ling's generation has more understanding and affection for the name red flag. This kind of affection is often associated with the car in the military parade and some ancient pictures. As for today's street, many hunky cars on the road just look like that, without much special feeling. But the car in front of me is different. In front of the car are two national flags fluttering in the wind. A red flag car without a red flag on the front is not a red flag car. Its speed is slow and very calm. In the face of its slowness and calmness, people who like to overtake and show off the sound of the engine will not have any sense of achievement. It drove past a row of Rolls-Royce, Bentley and other luxury cars. These usually powerful luxury cars suddenly became like younger brothers. "This car is so majestic," Professor Ling exclaimed. Many women may not know much about cars, but they are particularly sensitive to the smell of power and wealth. Lu Chang'an also took a look. When the hunky car was born in 1958, it became a special vehicle for national leaders and major national events. Dongfeng is somewhat dissatisfied with this, because before the birth of hunky, Dongfeng cars were the chairman's cars. But there is no way, hunky was born with a mission. Even today, the aura and glory of this brand have faded a lot, but after all, it is somewhat special, as long as the state guest vehicles are still of this brand. The car I see now is the hunky L5. There is a rumor that buying this car requires a political review. This is actually not true. All it requires is a qualification review. There is a big difference between political review and qualification review. Many times, people from all walks of life will not explain the differences. Sellers think this can attract more attention, and car buyers feel more competent. The hunky L5 and Lu Yuang's Volvo passed each other. Lu Chang'an saw several black Mercedes-Benz commercial vehicles following the L5 and couldn't help but frowned. Sure enough, Lu Chang'an's premonition when he frowned was right. The hunky L5 drove to the entrance of the comic exhibition venue. Commercial vehicles circled it and stopped, and then a group of men in black got out of the commercial vehicle. In Juncha, he would lead a group of strong men with an average height of 1.8 meters to show off everywhere, and they would also appear in places with a strong cultural atmosphere such as comic exhibitions. Who else could be there besides Zhu Huntang? Zhu Huntang got off the hunky car and walked directly to the entrance of the comic exhibition. Under the momentum of the group of people in black, Zhu Huntang walked straight in without going through the security check or checking in. No one dared to stop her. Or want to check tickets or something. Isn't that Zhu Huntang? And Nuan's eyes are also very powerful. Last night, he could clearly see the familiar grandma going to find her grandson. Today, it is also easy to recognize Zhu Huntang. The key is that Zhu Huntang is highly recognizable. Luxury cars, bodyguards, and low skirts. These three elements appear at the same time, which basically means that Zhu Huntang has not run away. It seems that Zhu Huntang is here to support Bai Hui. Last time they met, Zhu Huntang holding an alpaca, and Nuan and Hans Hizi went shopping with her. Their relationship changed from not being familiar with each other to becoming friends. Basically, as long as the girls know each other and have gone shopping together, it's okay to call them friends, but they can't be considered good friends, just make a few dates. And Nuan knew that Bai Hui was Zhu Huntang's good friend. From Bai Hui's space dynamics, she knew that Bai Hui often hung out with Zhu Huntang. The two of them had many common hobbies and were extremely obsessed with selfies, low skirts, Hanfu and JK uniforms. Zhu Huntang's favorite seems to be low skirts. She takes fewer selfies of Hanfu and female high school student uniforms. Recently, Bai Hui also forwarded a photo of Zhu Huntang wearing a sheep doll costume. In photos of Zhu Huntang wearing a sheep doll costume, she always shows off her swagger and thinks she is very powerful. Her aura seems to be more powerful than when she is wearing other clothes. I don't know why, maybe it's because of her cognition. How about this? It's her. Lu Chang'an turned his head and looked out of sight. He was really good at talking, and even put a red flag on the front of the car. Forget it, it can't be said that she is not qualified. There are also unification factions as rare as giant pandas among people in Taiwan. Person. It is rare for a child like Zhu Huntang, who has been exposed to all kinds of intelligence and brainwashing messages from Taiwan since birth, to be reasonably enlightened now. This is also inseparable from her social environment. She knows people like Qin Peng. Comparing it with politicians in Taiwan, she knows that as long as people like Qin Peng are still influential, the will of people like Qin Peng will still be there. Inheritance, there is no hope on the Taiwan side. Zhu Huntang is actually a very realistic business person and very frank. When her sect masters are defeated, she will follow them and wave the flag. If she runs away after the sect masters are defeated, it is not just a simple joke, but also reflects some of her feelings. Thoughts: the mainland is too strong, so the little fairy will naturally stand here. A wealthy family like the Zhu family, inherited from feudal society, cannot have any loyalty to Taiwan's politicians and the regime that cannot be promoted. Zhu Huntang. Lu Yuwang turned around and glanced at An Nuan. As expected, An Nuan's reaction was much calmer when he saw Zhu Huntang. An Nuan was more excited when she saw Bai Hui's poster than when she saw Zhu Huntang in person. This girl is so stupid. Lu Yuwang shook his head. Zhu Huntang is obviously the kind of person who, as a girlfriend, should be wary of her boyfriend's contact with. Lu Yuwang didn't think that Lu Chang'an coveted Zhu Huntang, he just analyzed it objectively and rationally, and felt that under the comparison of Zhu Huntang, it really made no sense for An Nuan to specifically target Bai Hui. Bai Fen is indeed perfect, of medium height, not like a street lamp like An Nuan. Her body is well proportioned, which makes her legs look long, and her cup size is even more difficult to compare to An Nuan. It's really great that a girl can grow up like this. After all, An Nuan Mei is extremely beautiful, and she is also the perfect girlfriend in the eyes of people like Lu Chang'an, but her compatibility is too poor. There are countless boyfriends who are suitable for Bayan, or men who think that a girl like Bayan is the most suitable for them. An Nuan is different. It is estimated that 90% of men cannot match her in terms of height. If women do not feel wronged, most of the time they will not choose men who are much less tall than themselves. An Nuan was lucky enough to meet Lu Chang'an. Lu Yuwang thought, she was really lucky now. If it hadn't been for Lu Chang'an, she didn't know how An Nuan would have found a boyfriend or what kind of one she would have found. This girl has a good background. Professor Ling sighed, this must be a real rich person, and pushed Lu Yuwang. Look, isn't the car she drives also a domestically produced car? Lu Yuwang was speechless for a moment. When people are rich to a certain level, no one would despise her even if she rides a shared bicycle. But Lu Yuwang is just an ordinary person. Ordinary people need these external objects to support their appearance. Improving their spiritual realm alone will not do much. I mean, unless it's this guy Lu Chang'an. No, Lu Chang'an does not need external objects to support his appearance, not because his spiritual level is too high, but because he is not an ordinary person at all. What's more, Lu Chang'an's mental state is not high in many cases. He is not the kind of person who is willing to take the initiative, or because he is too well educated, he is indifferent to the various frustrations and depressions that ordinary people feel in real life, but when he encounters in such a situation, they will directly solve the problem with their fists and beat others up. For example, last time Lu Yuwang was despised by the female driver of an Audi A5. If it was Lu Chang'an, he would probably beat her up if he wanted to argue. After beating someone up, Of course he had clear thoughts. How could he be like Lu Yuwang, holding his breath and thinking, if I change my car and meet that bitch again, she won't be able to despise me. In the past, En Nuan would not talk to Lu Yuwang about things that might make Lu Yuwang have a negative impression of Lu Chang'an. After knowing that Lu Chang'an's position in her mother's heart was stable, En Nuan only talked about things about Lu Chang'an solving problems with fists. Lu Yuwang also experienced it personally. Lu Chang'an didn't hit her directly with his fist, but it was almost the same. Last times Hizzy and I went shopping for bags, we visited her shopping mall. By the way, she was also holding an alpaca. En Nuan sighed in a knowledgeable tone. It turns out that rich people raise, she doesn't even make pets by herself. Her alpaca is called Long Aotian, and there are people who raise cats and dogs for her. Her cat and dog names are also very interesting. The cat is called Saint, and the dog is called Doormaster. After En Nuan finished speaking, she felt her boyfriend beside her stiffen. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at him, and found that Lu Chang'an was in an extremely rare state of suppressing some emotions. This is rare, just like Lu Chang'an rarely gets angry, because when he is unhappy, he will immediately deal with the people and things that make him unhappy, so there is no accumulation of emotions in his heart, so anger will naturally not break out. The name of Zhu Huntang's cat can be said to be appropriate, but her dog, when Lu Chang'an first learned about it, he punished her, but he also forgot to ask her to change her name and was too lazy to argue with her. It's not surprising that the cat and dog still have the same name. Lu Chang'an suspected the alpaca named Long Aotian, and Zhu Huntang was alluding to him. Zhu Huntang usually has nothing to do and spends a lot of energy on provoking, insulting, and targeting Lu Chang'an. Even if she is the one who is often insulted in the end, she still enjoys it. This person is so interesting, Professor Ling chuckled. Zhi mentioned Zhu Huntang's name when she came back from buying a bag that day. It turned out to be this little girl. Zhu Huntang is indeed very interesting. By the way, Aunt Ling, do you know that the boy who pursued Hizzy to Juncha was bitten by Zhu Huntang's dog? En Nuan said to Professor Ling. That time En Nuan accompanied Hans Hizzy to see Wu Fan, and Zhu Huntang was also present. En Nuan was amazed by Zhu Huntang's performance at that time. Goodbye. Professor Ling frowned. Later I looked at the boy's face. He had a sharp mouth and monkey cheeks, and his eyes were not straight. It seemed that he was chasing Hizzy and wanted En Nuan's contact information. Both Hizzy and I said, "This Zhu Huntang doesn't study well and doesn't study well. He didn't get into the exam seriously." Lu Yuwang was still worried about this about Zhu Huntang. The first time I met Zhu Huntang, it was Zhu Huntang who accompanied Qin Yinan. At that time, Zhu Huntang acted like an uneducated young lady from a rich family, saying I can't take the college entrance examination. Lu Yuwang was very concerned about this kind of failure through his own efforts. I have never had much favorable impressions of people who enter college with their own abilities, but Zhu Huntang is so cute, which weakens these dislikes. Innocent people, those who lack social beatings, always go smoothly, and those who have not been tortured by various unspoken rules often have a stronger sense of justice and right and wrong. She doesn't study when she's good, but loves to study when she's messy, Lu Chang'an said expressionlessly. Zhu Huntang was interested in all kinds of messy things, but had no interest in learning. That's true. En Nuan covered her mouth and laughed. She also likes to learn curse words. She told me that day that she learned a curse word, stupid. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling both laughed. If their own daughters learned to curse, they would be beaten, but other people's cute little girls learned to curse seriously and found it funny. What a fool, Lu Chang'an repeated, no longer expressionless, and gently held En Nuan's hand. His girlfriend was also stupid, and she was afraid of being scolded. Of course, this is not surprising. En Nuan and Lu Chang'an have no conclusive evidence yet. Did she look at you seriously? Did she say something like her dog's name is the master, and then tell you that she learned such a curse word? Lu Chang'an asked. He understands Zhu Huntang very well. Zhu Huntang will not let go of any opportunity to provoke Lu Chang'an, especially an opportunity that harms both Anyuan and Lu Chang'an. She will not let it go. En Nuan looked at her boyfriend in surprise, as if he had witnessed it with his own eyes, and couldn't help but nodded. Lu Chang'an didn't say anything. When Lu Yuwang parked the car, he said to the three of them, "You guys go shopping first. I have something to do with Zhu Huntang. I will come back to you soon." Did she offend you, because it was Zhu Huntang? And Nuan didn't think about the ambiguity between men and women, but after a close relationship between men and women, they often know how to sense each other's emotions and impulses. After all, intimacy they like to experience and observe each other when they are together. "Well, I'll beat her up." Lu Chang'an didn't tell En Nuan the specific reason, because he didn't want the relationship between En Nuan and Zhu Huntang to be too bad, and Zhu Huntang didn't really have any objections to En Nuan. She, Zhu Huntang, was only targeting Lu Chang'an. Ah, Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang were both surprised. How could he do something to such a cute little girl? And, why? Through personal experience, both Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang knew that Lu Chang'an had absolutely no idea of being soft-hearted towards women, and was very good at destroying flowers with ruthless hands. Both Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang were destroyed by him into ruins. "I'll go find you later. I want to go to the comic exhibition anyway." En Nuan didn't try to stop Lu Chang'an. En Nuan was not the kind of person who, even if she didn't know what happened or the reasons behind it, would still rely on her own standards to take care of herself first. Discourage or comment on other people's style without hesitation. There must be a reason why Lu Chang'an did this. En Nuan was curious, but would not doubt that Lu Chang'an was crazy. "Are you crazy? Why did you suddenly hit her?" Lu Yuwang was an elder, so of course he had to dissuade her. Professor Ling also nodded vigorously. She and Lu Yuwang both liked Lu Chang'an and regarded him as half a son-in-law or a quasi-son-in-law. "It's okay, I often hit her, she's used to it." Lu Chang'an comforted them, patting Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang on the shoulders, and said in a gentle tone, "You guys go have fun, pay attention to safety, be careful of the crowds, there are people in crowded places. If you need anything, call me." Watching Lu Chang'an leave, Professor Ling and Lu Yuwang came to their senses. The tone of this man talking to them was like coaxing a little girl, but it sounded quite comfortable, making people want to respond to him in a gentle tone. "I'm so long. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal." Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 810. As long as a woman is coaxed, she can act like a little girl at the age of 80. There are many grandparents showing affection on various social media. U1S1, the show of affection between grandpa and grandma can give people a very good feeling, make people yearn for and look forward to marriage and love, restore some confidence, and think, maybe I can also look forward to growing old like this. The so-called pampering between young men and women in staged photos is so sweet and embarrassing that it only makes people get goosebumps. It would have been better if the photos had been more natural. "You don't care when Lu Chang'an goes to beat someone," Lu Yuwang said to En Nuan. Lu Yuwang asked himself that his influence on Lu Chang'an was almost zero. "I can't control him even if I look after him." Chang'an is a very independent person. Professor Ling was right about this. Don't look at the many times when Lu Chang'an was obedient to En Nuan, and even disobeyed Professor Lu for the sake of En Nuan. Unambiguous. En Nuan looked at her boyfriend's tall back and felt a little beautiful in her heart. This man was always so chic and calm. En Nuan felt that even from 1,000 meters away, she could feel his uniqueness and his excellence. "Your thoughts are too old-fashioned. Why do you always think you have to control your men?" En Nuan's thoughts were different from theirs. Boyfriend, many people don't pay attention to the word friend. He is first of all with himself. Extremely congenial friends. Since they are friends, they understand and support each other, rather than one party controlling the other. Is that a friend? They are a mother and son. Lu Yuwang and Professor Ling looked at each other. What they said was a bit interesting. Now when talking about boyfriend and girlfriend, very few people really pay attention to the word friend. No one taught in Nuan, but she can experience it herself. No wonder Lu Chang'an likes her so much. It is said that women who act coquettishly have the best luck, but is it really enough to just act like a coquettish woman? Lu Chang'an and I were good friends when we were in high school. From good friends to boyfriend and girlfriend, no one deliberately pursued the other. From being ambiguous but not yet in love to becoming real lovers, it all happened naturally. There is no need to test each other, and there is no need to worry about whether they are suitable or not after getting together. And Nuan generously recalled her sweet past. It's because they are friends first, friends who can get along well. Of course, friends no longer have the problem of who is in charge of whom, so Nuan has never had the habit or idea of controlling Lu Chang'an. Like a typical example in high school, Miao Yingying and Lin Xinying. Miao Yingying wanted to control Lin Xinhua, but she broke up when she couldn't control her, and Nuan knew that Miao Yingying was chasing Gao Duai now. If Miao Yingying still wanted to control Gao Duai, there was no hope. And Nuan is especially wary of Bai Hui. Bai Hui is not like Miao Yingying. Bai Hui will definitely not try to control Lu Chang'an. She will get along with Lu Chang'an like a friend. This is what Lu Chang'an did. I really envy today's children. Their thoughts may not be as realistic as ours, but they are more open-minded, generous, and confident. Professor Ling admired sincerely. After all, she is not a biological mother, so Lu Yuwang always wants to hit Nuan to prevent Nuan from being too arrogant. One thing Professor Ling likes to deal with young people is that his own thinking and habits tend to constrain her thoughts and make her fall behind. With the times, this is unavoidable. Only by interacting more with young people and learning their current thinking can we avoid becoming an outdated antique that is difficult to communicate with. You must know that even great men who are far-sighted and whose vision is not limited to the current era will still say, "The world is yours and ours," but in the final analysis it is yours. Young people who are born and grow with the times. People have their own advanced nature and progress, and there are always things worth learning from older people. I hope I can keep my word, and what I say now sounds pretty good, Lu Yuwang said firmly, not wanting Nuan to be too confident, lest she trust her own judgment too much and not be able to listen to different opinions. Nuan nodded thoughtfully, saying this in the hope that some people could understand what a dangerous sign the original netizens were, especially the netizens who were easy to talk to, got along well with, and were quite speculative. Lu Yuwang didn't have such a thing in his mind, but Nuan thought too much. Of course, he didn't understand Nuan's deep meaning, so he called Professor Ling and walked towards the entrance together. The three women were all very eye-catching, but Professor Ling was a bit better. After all, he was only 1.68 meters tall and his high heels were only 10 centimeters. Lu Yuwang and Nuan were particularly tall, and there was an anchor who was eager to get close to them. Lu Yuwang glanced at him accidentally, and when he met Lu Yuwang's condescending look caused by his purely physical advantage, the anchor turned around as if nothing had happened. The feeling of inferiority still exists widely, especially when faced with women like Lu Yuwang and Nuan whose appearance and temperament are too exquisite and outstanding. A middle-aged man with a slight beer belly was waiting next to the entrance. When he saw Lu Yuwang, he came up to him and handed a few tickets to the car show to Lu Yuwang. "Director Qian, please excuse me." Lu Yuwang took out his wallet. "How much is it? I'll give it to you." "What are you doing?" the middle-aged man refused, pretending to be angry. "I've been waiting for you here for a while. Is it to sell tickets?" Come in, you're welcome." "Then you're welcome. I haven't seen your Ruzu for a long time." "How is she doing lately?" Lu Yuwang said with a smile. "She's still like that, clamoring to learn from you." I gave her a fitness card, but she didn't go. The middle-aged man shook his head and sighed. It's better not to go to the gym. Professor Ling showed a teasing smile. Director Qian, don't you know that when a woman goes to the gym, the probability of cheating increases dramatically? Haha. Director Qian laughed. Professor Ling, you have given me inspiration. I have to persuade her to go to the gym. I am annoying her. She is getting divorced, but it is too difficult. Her weight, high-speed rail. It's not even her turn to cheat. The three acquaintances chatted for a while, then Director Qian left. And Nuan took Lu Yuang's hand and entered the car show. This is how the older generation does things. They always like to find people to say hello or to go to the car show for convenience. In fact, it's not because I'm greedy for cheap, but I'm just used to it. This is true for both my thinking patterns and behavioral habits. Lu Chang'an also walked to the entrance of the comic exhibition, where there were many large posters of guests. Some guests were put together to form a poster, and some guests had separate posters, which were also divided into different sizes. Bai Hui's is particularly eye-catching. The time and stage location of her performance are highlighted in large fonts on the poster. Lu Chang'an took a look and was about to call Zhu Huntang when he saw Qin's Haiqiang and a girl from his class coming to the comic exhibition together. Qin's Haiqiang did not notice Lu Chang'an talking and laughing with the girl. It seems that after giving up Sanbengzi, a mobile game, Qin's Haiqiang has broken away from the category of otaku and has moved towards cashing in. He even made an appointment with a nice young lady to go to the comic exhibition together. School is about to start, and most of the classmates have returned to school. Lu Chang'an thought of Yan Qingcheng. Yan Qingcheng should have more time to make up for Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang is still too busy and relaxed. If Zhu Huntang is full of work, his mind is all about studying, so he probably doesn't like to talk to Lu Chang'an that much. Lu Chang'an did not go in, but called Zhu Huntang and called her out. He stood in a corner, behind the poster, waiting for Zhu Huntang. After a while, Zhu Huntang came out alone. She obviously didn't realize what Lu Chang'an was looking for. She didn't bring her bread man, or maybe she knew that facing Lu Chang'an, she couldn't bring more bread men with her. Significance. Su Mei likes to bring robots, and Zhu Huntang likes to bring bread people. They are worthy of being mother and daughter. Then Su Mei is in Antarctica now. I wonder if Zhu Huntang is willing to go to the North Pole to live with the Eskimos. Lu Chang'an will be happy to do it for her. Send off. Zhu Huntang was wearing an off-white skirt today, which looked very elegant in the overcast outdoor light. Her two long ponytails swayed as she turned her head, and she stood on the steps with her legs tightly together. The lace square-heeled shoes made her stance look particularly tall. After looking around warily, she spotted Lu Chang'an. As a fairy, of course, she has a keen sense of crisis. Even as a fairy sheep, that is also the case. After all, sheep are herbivores and do not have strong fighting power. They must have a keen sense of crisis. Only when danger comes will they have a chance to bleed. Ran. Zhu Huntang felt a sense of crisis when she received a call from Lu Chang'an today, but because of this, she ran out to see how Lu Chang'an would deal with him. After all, she is a fairy, a being who stands at the top level of creatures like women. Lu Chang'an scared her so much that she dared not see him with just one phone call, so what kind of fairy is she? After Zhu Huntang discovered Lu Chang'an, he picked up his phone and observed Lu Chang'an's expression through the telephoto camera on the phone, then he raised his palms and ran over one by one. A girl not far away felt extremely cute when she saw Zhu Huntang running like this. She also raised her palms and fanned her, but she felt stupid for doing so, so she gave up. Hey, Zhu Huntang came to Lu Chang'an, greeted him, and then pulled her skirt. What are you doing here? Did Bai Hui invite you here? There is a car show next door. I accompanied An Nuan and her mother to see the cars, Lu Chang'an said in a calm tone, pointing to the exhibition hall next to him. Bai Hui did not make an appointment with Lu Chang'an, or even told Lu Chang'an that she would attend this comic exhibition, probably because Bai Hui is a busy person and has many activities, and Lu Chang'an cannot come to support every time, or she does not want to give tickets to Lu Chang'an was a prostitute for free, and it was not like Lu Chang'an knew how to buy a ticket to participate. After a brief analysis, Lu Chang'an felt that this was the case. What's there to see at the auto show? Zhu Huntang felt that Lu Chang'an was really free to do such a boring thing. It would be fun to come to the comic show to see the beautiful ladies, so he pointed to the comic show and said, "Come with me to play." Okay, Lu Chang'an nodded while looking at Zhu Huntang's skirt and the flawless white socks. If only before. Why are you so talkative today and you really agreed to play with me? Zhu Huntang likes to play with Lu Chang'an very much, but now is not the time to be happy, so she is not so naive and looks at Lu Chang'an more suspiciously, say, "Yes, don't you want to frame me?" Such Lu Chang'an is too suspicious. Zhu Huntang knows very well that the priority of playing with Zhu Huntang is very low. It can never be higher than accompanying An Nuan and her mother to watch the car show, and it is far away. Lower priority than beating and abusing Zhu Huntang. Unless the real intention of playing with Zhu Huntang is to torture her, then it will be given a very high priority on the surface, which is what Lu Chang'an is like now. Do I need to frame you? I don't need to think about it. You will find a reason why others can't beat you. Lu Chang'an reached out and grabbed her head to prevent her from running away. Tell me, you scolded An Nuan for being stupid. What means? Zhu Huntang was shocked. After he cursed perfectly that day, in order to distract An Nuan and divert the attention of An Nuan and Hans Hizi, he took them to the shopping mall with great care, allowing them to witness in amazement the influence of the rich lady. Power and purchasing power. She did this just to make An Nuan and Hans Hizi forget the word doggy. Generally speaking, it is impossible for a person to be deeply impressed by everything that happens every day. When something more exciting happens, the little things before may be forgotten. This is Zhu Huntang's ingenious design. He curses people first and then diverts their attention, so that they will not remember the doggy incident. Who knew that such a clever strategy would fail, and An Nuan would still bring up the shit with Lu Chang'an? After all, Lu Chang'an is Lu Chang'an, the person Zhu Huntang reluctantly convinced. Of course, he will find out who Zhu Huntang is really scolding. I didn't scold her, Zhu Huntang firmly refused to admit it. If he confessed, he would be lenient, but if he resisted, he would be lenient. It doesn't exist. Confession will only lead to an earlier and worse death. Only by resisting can you hope to escape. Lu Chang'an's head was caught, but that didn't stop Zhu Huntang from thinking quickly. In just a few seconds, he thought of several ways to escape, none of them worked. Didn't you drive a particularly impressive car today? Let's get in the car and have a chat, Lu Chang'an suggested kindly. Zhu Huntang remembered what happened many times before in her RV, the kind of RV with a bedroom and a bed. It was a humiliating history of blood and tears. Zhu Huntang's skirt and socks were brutally murdered, and her death was in pieces and horrific. You must not go to the car with Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an has not treated her like this recently, but there is no chance that he will return to his old career in anger today. I recently learned a kung fu. Zhu Huntang had to fight against the odds. The socks she wore today looked like simple white socks on the surface. The style and design were not outstanding, but they were actually very expensive. And rare. These socks are white during the day, with dark gold patterns looming in places with strong light, but at night they turn black, and the dark gold patterns turn red, full of mysterious charm. After Zhu Huntang fully understood the high-tech laboratories that his mother had given him, he put them to good use and made some very practical high-tech products. Zhu Huntang still likes these socks and cannot let Lu Chang'an destroy them. She must try her best to protect them and not let them die easily at Lu Chang'an's hands. Lu Chang'an didn't know why she suddenly talked about kung fu, but he subconsciously felt that if she was willing to learn something, it deserved encouragement and attention. In ancient times, there were many kung fu named after animals, and the creative inspiration came from the movements and attacks of various animals. Zhu Huntang gradually calmed down. Although her head was still under Lu Chang'an's control, she knew that no matter how angry Lu Chang'an was, he would not scratch her head, so Zhu Huntang could still think calmly and calmly. Have you learned one of them? Lu Chang'an thought of many boxing techniques. Kung fu named after animals are mostly boxing techniques. Why boxing? Because most of the attacking movements of these animals require the use of their front paws, and their various attacking movements also require the use of their front paws to maintain balance. After humans learned that it is most convenient to imitate animal movements with their hands, they were often used. What is the name of the punch? For example, monkey boxing, tiger boxing, chicken boxing, duck boxing, crane boxing, mantis boxing, dog boxing, horse boxing, female boxing, and so on. Lu Chang'an can do it, but basically doesn't use it because it's really weak. Yes, if you have the ability, let me go. I can defeat you with this kung fu I invented, Zhu Huntang said with confidence. Lu Chang'an sneered. He didn't believe she could invent any kung fu at all. He just wanted to see what tricks she wanted to play. What's more, can she escape from his grasp? Just a little lamb. So Lu Chang'an let go of her head and looked at her leisurely. No matter what animals she learned or what skills she mastered, hitting him was the same as tickling him. Puff puff. Zhu Huntang puffed up his cheeks, spit at Lu Chang'an 3 times, turned around, and ran away. Lu Chang'an stood there blankly. After watching her run into the comic exhibition venue, Lu Chang'an wiped his face and came to his senses, clenching his hands into fists and glaring at Zhu Huntang's back. She is dead. Lu Chang'an must send her to the North Pole to pull sleds for the Eskimos. Okay. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 811. The Antarctic, the Arctic, the Qinghai Tibet Plateau and the Mariana Trench are Lu Chang'an's favorite places on Earth. He often goes there to look around. After staying in these places for a while, he feels particularly good. Human activities have not yet been frequent. Before arriving at these places, he has also dealt with Eskimos. In the eyes of many people, this race is short and lives in houses made of ice bricks, just like Santa Claus. In fact, Eskimos are the disparaging name given to them by the Indians, who prefer to call themselves Inuit. It was only a short time ago that the Inuit left Asia and went to the North American continent. They are actually yellow people. The term yellow race is also full of prejudice. It is just a word designed by some Westerners' racial prejudice and sense of superiority. In fact, unless yellow race people often work in the sun, they will acquire yellow skin, which is the color of most babies when they are born. Yellow has nothing to do with it at all. After the improvement of life, the so-called yellow people in mainland China are basically fair and fairer than the so-called white people in the West, and their skin color and texture look more advanced. Objectively speaking, the skin texture of white people is similar to that of large white pigs commonly seen in Asia. It is rough and pale, rather than soft and pink. Nowadays, everyone sympathizes with the Indians, saying that the Indians were massacred by the colonists. In fact, when the Inuit came to North America, they were also mercilessly massacred by the Indians. It was not easy for them to survive. Surviving the hardships made Lu Chang'an feel soft, so what's the problem with sending Zhu Huntang to help them pull the sled? Lu Chang'an wiped his face. He should have been alert a long time ago. What other animals can Zhu Huntang learn? Like a cat to scratch someone, like a dog to bite someone, these were the 2 animals Lu Chang'an had in mind at that time. Because of his habitual thinking, Lu Chang'an felt that Zhu Huntang might invent some kind of cat boxing or dog boxing. Zhu Huntang's inventions don't need to be taken seriously at all, they are always messy, just like her invention of history. Lu Chang'an ignored the alpaca creature, but An Nuan even mentioned to him in the car that Zhu Huntang had an alpaca named Long Aotian. Lu Chang'an should have thought of, forget it, it's normal to not think of it. He is a normal person with normal thinking, but Zhu Huntang is not normal. It is so normal for a normal person to not think of anything abnormal that an abnormal person would do. Handsome, are you okay? Lu Chang'an heard a gentle and concerned voice and turned his head. It was a girl who looked ordinary but was full of affinity. I'm fine. Lu Chang'an shook his head, a little confused. Is this a new way of striking up a conversation? But the other person didn't look like the kind of person who would deliberately strike up a conversation with a handsome man. Are you really okay? I see you are swaying, and you feel like you are going to faint when I follow you, the girl said uneasily. Lu Chang'an nodded. He didn't know what to say for a while. He stretched out his hand to gesture and opened his mouth. In the end, he didn't want to say anything anymore and smiled, "Thank you, I'm fine." After saying that, Lu Chang'an went to the poster at the entrance of the comic exhibition and scanned the QR code to buy tickets. What was interesting was that the QR code was printed on Bai Hui's chest on the poster. Lu Chang'an did not pay too much attention to his mental and physical state, which was as fragile and vulnerable as ordinary people. This is a good thing, it shows that he is ordinary, very normal. Any father, no, any normal person who cares about mentally retarded children will react like this when someone spits on him or makes him angry. Lu Chang'an did not rush in and out of the comic exhibition venue like Zhu Huntang did. He bought a ticket. After verification, the young lady at the door held his hand, carefully found the center of the back of his hand and stamped it. Lu Chang'an was sure that she was taking advantage of him, because there was some hesitation in her movements after shaking hands, and she did not shake the hands of those who entered the room before Lu Chang'an. Indecent, Lu Chang'an said in disgust, and then walked in. What did he say? The girl in charge of sealing thought she had misunderstood, and said in shock to the boy next to him who was collecting physical tickets. He said you were obscene. The boy laughed. You are indeed obscene. Why do you call me vulgar? What happened to me? The young lady's face turned red. If a fat nerd scolded her like this, of course she wouldn't take it seriously. But to be treated with disgust by a handsome man with such a cold and indifferent temperament, the tone was obscene, which was a bit of a shock. If you see someone with average looks, let them stretch out your hand to get a stamp. If you see someone with good looks, go and hold their hand. You touched the hands of all the handsome guys who came in today. If you are not wretched, who is wretched? Boy said calmly. You, is there something wrong with you? Staring at me secretly? Disgusting. The young lady stared at the boy next to her with disgust, then moved a stool to the side and sat down. After Lu Chang'an entered the venue, he started to look around. At the beginning of 2018, it was still the carnival era of selling meat. In various fields of culture, video, art, and other fields, any works that can arouse people's desires have been favored by the eyeballs. Except for online novels, which have been severely cracked down. 135 checks if it is related to politics, it will be investigated on 246, and 246 if it is related to crime. The network will be cleaned once every 6 months and blocked once a year. Actually, that's not the case, it's nonsense. The phenomenon of selling meat at comic exhibitions is booming. After competing on a large scale at comic exhibitions, and gaining a certain degree of internet popularity, he became known as an internet celebrity causer. During offline activities, his value skyrocketed, just like set with diamonds. This routine has been tried and tested many times, and those two-dimensional beauties who were already quite famous have become even more popular. Even Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui once lamented the skyrocketing price of meat, the smell of wine and meat in wealthy families, and the otakus who have not known the taste of meat for 30 years. Become a magician. The weather outside the comic exhibition was cold and gloomy, and most passers-by wore cotton-padded jackets to protect themselves from the cold. But inside the venue, all kinds of fat and thin young ladies competed for beauty, revealing their furrows and showing off their legs. In fact, quite a few men and women who appear in cos are not too revealing in their clothing, but those who like to appear in revealing roles are always more eye-catching. Looking around, there are also many who are pulled aside by photographers and enjoy more professional photography treatment. It's the ladies who have some meaty spots to photograph. More posers are in a state of being ignored. This refers to the fact that comic show photographers don't pay attention to them. Most ordinary viewers will still request to be photographed or happily take a group photo when they see a character they like or something they like. These occasions range from sleazy to fun. As the first large-scale comic exhibition of the year, school is about to start. Act culture enthusiasts who have been holding back a winter vacation at home have the opportunity to have fun and flock to the venue. The venue is crowded, except for occasionally seeing a few breads. The human figure, Zhu Huntang, has disappeared without a trace. Lu Chang'an looked around, and with a little patience, it was not difficult to find Zhu Huntang, because she was always very eye-catching. The colors of her clothes are either shiny or bright, and there are usually not too many people gathered around her to block the view of her. On such occasions, there will always be one or two bread men to guard closely, and other bread men to guard far and near. She must be hiding carefully now, but after a while she will let down her guard and come out to wander around. Anyway, going to the auto show is even more boring. En Nuan's ultimate goal is this comic show, so Lu Chang'an waited patiently here. Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an turned around and saw Qin's Haiqiang and another female classmate Tong 11. Lu Chang'an saw the two of them outside the venue just now. He originally thought they were just here for a casual look, but now he discovered that Tong 11 was actually here for cos. Qin's Haiqiang is holding an entry-level full-frame camera Canon 6D2 with a 24-105 lens. I don't recognize Lu Chang'an, the character played by Tong 11, but Tong 11, who is usually inconspicuous, is actually quite passable in his dressing up. At least he is considered outstanding in this scene. Tong 11 was a little embarrassed when she met the classmates in the class, not to mention Lu Chang'an, who was quite notorious in the class and didn't like to deal with girls. Tong 11 and Qin's Haiqiang have a good relationship now, otherwise they would not be able to meet at the comic exhibition. She also asked Qin's Haiqiang some things about Lu Chang'an, and Qin's Haiqiang said that Lu Chang'an is a very nice person. Tong 11 told some rumors about Lu Chang'an that he heard in the dormitory, but Qin's Haiqiang was shocked, thinking that they were not talking about the same person at all. Lu Chang'an originally thought that Qin's Haiqiang would dress up as a woman and Tong 11 would accompany him. Sun Shutong and Wei Xuanyi are not here, Lu Chang'an asked with a smile. Tong 11 doesn't want too many people to know that we haven't made an appointment with anyone else. Qin's Haiqiang motioned to Lu Chang'an to keep it a secret. Lu Chang'an nodded. He would forget about it when he turned around. There was nothing to say. He and Tong 11 were not familiar with each other at all. Naturally, it was impossible for him to go to the class group to talk about how he met Tong 11 at the comic exhibition today. Lu Chang'an, I heard that you and Bai Hui are high school classmates. Tong 11 spoke to Lu Chang'an for the first time and looked into his eyes seriously. She was a little nervous. Yes, I am also an alumnus of the university now. Lu Chang'an found that apart from himself, who didn't pay much attention to Bai Hui, there were quite a few people around him who paid attention to Bai Hui. When Sun Shutong and Wei Xuanyi saw Bai Hui at the comic exhibition last year, they were very excited and asked to take a photo with them. They were both alumni. Did you see her poster at the door? Tong 11 and Lu Chang'an were no longer nervous when talking, and looked at him excitedly. I'm not blind. Lu Chang'an was a little confused. Could he not see it? Qin's Haiqiang coughed lightly. He used to think that Lu Chang'an was the current king, but now he realized that he was really super straight. Lu Chang'an added a smile. After all, the words "I'm not blind" just now seemed to make Tong 11 feel impatient. Chin's Haikyung probably had some thoughts about Tong 11. Seeing Lu Chang'an's smiling face, Tong 11 felt relieved. After all, there were rumors in the girls' dormitory that Lu Chang'an often beat people for no reason. Once he heard someone reciting the Book of Songs, he felt that they were not qualified to recite the Book of Songs, so he beat them up. I hope I can have a chance to take a photo with her today. After saying this, Tong 11 glanced at Lu Chang'an enviously. What activities did you have in high school? Did she perform any show? Could it be that Bai Hui is really a moderate star? Lu Chang'an realized this and nodded. Yes, but in high school, she sang more. It was only in college that I learned that she often danced and posted it on the internet. She sings very nicely too. Bai Hui and Lu Chang'an have a very good relationship. When we take a group photo together, we tell her that we are classmates in Lu Chang'an's class, and maybe she will take more photos with us, Chin's Haikyung suggested. Lu Chang'an thought for a while. Bai Hui was not that popular in school. He had never seen anyone chasing Bai Hui in school for a photo. Maybe it was because the atmosphere of the occasion had a psychological impact. He remembered the last time he took a photo with Bai Hui at the comic exhibition. Bai Hui was not very particular. Since they took a photo together, she should send one to him. Even though he didn't need it, she should do it. Still have to do it? After chatting for a while, Tong 11 was called to take photos. Chin's Haikyung quickly followed. He was just an entry-level photography enthusiast. He was somewhat wary of those veteran photographers at comic exhibitions. If they took Tong 11, the photos taken by 11 are so beautiful. If I have anything to do in the future, I will ask Tong 11 to take pictures. Then what does Chin's Haikyung have to do with him? Chin's Haikyung felt a little regretful. He could have just asked Tong 11 to take pictures in some ancient places. By learning from each other and improving each other, friendship could be gradually enhanced. Why did he propose to go to the comic exhibition together? Here, they are all wolves. Seeing Chin's Haikyung's nervous and panic-stricken back, Lu Chang'an laughed. In fact, it was obvious that Tong 11 had a good impression of Chin's Haikyung, which was reflected in some detailed actions. For example, when the photographers came to call her to take photos, although she agreed and walked towards the studio, she turned back to greet Chin's Haikyung, constantly paying attention to see if he was following. Some girls, when asked by these photographers, often become excited and forget about their companions to enjoy the feeling of being surrounded by many cameras. Chin's Haikyung has the hobby and skills of cross-dressing, but his orientation has not changed, which is a good thing. By the way, his camera must have been earned through cross-dressing, right? Guess so. After all, this set of camera lenses is not cheap, costing more than 10,000 to nearly 20,000. Lu Chang'an thought of his camera, which he hadn't used for a long time. If An Nuan had told her earlier that she was going to the Comic-Con, Lu Chang'an could have brought it with her. An Nuan's dress today goes well with the atmosphere at the comic show. Not only the design style and pattern of the skirt, but also her antique-style hair accessories, jade earrings, and fabric shoes decorated with buckles are all elements that fit here. Lu Chang'an continued to look for Zhu Huntang. Based on his understanding of Zhu Huntang, she would not run away. For her, she now thinks that she is competing with Lu Chang'an in a battle of wits and courage. If Lu Chang'an fails to catch her, she will feel proud and have a sense of accomplishment. She also knew that she would not get anything good if she was caught. The best way was to run away and go back to Bailong Center to avoid the limelight. But Zhu Huntang is not the one who would do that. What Zhu Huntang likes is the feeling of constantly stretching his legs and testing on the edge of death. This comic exhibition is large in scale, and there are many stalls, stages, game activity areas, etc. inside, which can easily block the view. Lu Chang'an turned around and didn't find Zhu Huntang. Instead, he saw Qin's Haiqiang and Tong 11 taking photos with Bai Hui. Bai Hui saw Lu Chang'an first and waved towards him. Lu Chang'an was originally going to continue looking for Zhu Huntang, but since everyone had greeted him, it was not convenient for him to leave on his own, so he nodded and stopped. The clothes Bai Hui wore looked familiar. Lu Chang'an seemed to have seen them somewhere, but he wasn't very impressed. Bai Hui, who is surrounded by everyone, seems to be a little different from usual. She is particularly conspicuous. It seems that in comparison with other people, people understand that she naturally has a reason to shine. The brilliance flowing between her eyebrows is full of vitality. The posture, the fair and soft skin is particularly fresh in the dim environment. It seems that the whole person exudes a fresh and tender atmosphere, like some tempting food, sweet and mouth-watering, especially the waist-cinching design of the skirt, which is very flattering to the figure and makes the thin parts more delicate. Lu Chang'an also had to admit that Bai Hui like this was indeed qualified to be En Nuan's rival. Today, En Nuan would naturally compete with Bai Hui, but it would be difficult to overpower Bai Hui. After all, this is in Bai Hui's home field. Audiences and tourists may be more attracted to two-dimensional beautiful girls like Bai Hui. Of course, En Nuan cannot fall behind. Even though this is Bai Hui's home court, with Lu Chang'an's support, the home court advantage is meaningless. The advantage of a home stadium lies in the large number of people. For example, in the home stadium of various competitive sports events, visiting team fans do not dare to be too arrogant, lest they are outnumbered and beaten. This advantage is ineffective against Lu Chang'an. Even if he is the only fan of the visiting team, he can send all the fans of the home team to the hospital to lie down. Bai Hui, Qin's Haiqiang, and Tong 11 walked over together after taking photos. In fact, there are some differences between Lu Chang'an walking over and Bai Hui walking over. It means who is more proactive and who is more powerful or has the psychological advantage in social relationships. Bai Hui knows this very well. If this person can stand there and wait for you to pass after you greet him, he has already given you a lot of face. If you expect him to take the initiative to come over, that is the kind of treatment only En Nuan can get, and no one else can even think about it. Even so, Bai Hui is still very happy. As a friend, the right way to get along is to be more proactive, care less, understand each other's personality and make a positive gesture. At the end of her senior year in high school, Bai Hui often extended an olive branch to Lu Chang'an, but most of the time she was rejected by him. Bai Hui did not change the way she treated her friends, and it was very different now. Hi, Bai Hui smiled slightly, with the corners of her mouth raised slightly, just as subtle as the spring breeze lifting the willow branches. She put her hands behind her back and hooked her little fingers together. I shook my body and tilted my head to look at him. I was really happy to meet him by chance. She's very beautiful today. This was Bai Hui's workplace, and Lu Chang'an's attitude was also very easygoing and upright. He praised her and cheered her up. Thank you. Bai Hui felt that the corners of her mouth were about to burst. She was afraid that the blooming smile would destroy her personality. She quickly stabilized her posture and nodded reservedly. Lu Chang'an took the initiative to praise her for her beauty. I'll send a message to Miao Yingying and Zhu Huntang later to talk about it. Either they feel proud or they feel fresh. Lu Chang'an, let's take another photo. Tong 11 was still immersed in the excitement after taking a photo with the girl he liked. Don't underestimate the enthusiasm and admiration a girl has for the girl she likes. So Tong 11 dared to ask Lu Chang'an for a group photo. She now felt that Lu Chang'an was not as scary as the legend in the girls' dormitory said. She could also take the group photo back to the girls' dormitory to show off and explain to Lu Chang'an that he was actually a very gentle person. I'm a human being, but I don't usually like to chat and laugh with girls like other boys. Bai Hui tugged on Lu Chang'an's sleeve and stood on his left side. On his right side was Qin's Haiqiang. On the right side of Qin's Haiqiang is Tong 11. Tong 11 took out his mobile phone and raised it high. I'll do it. Lu Chang'an took Tong 11's cell phone, because with Tong 11's height, it was a bit difficult to take a group photo including Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an raised his mobile phone high and took a group photo of 4 people looking at the mobile phone camera from top to bottom. Except for Lu Chang'an, who thought it was okay, the other 3 people thought their faces were deformed. So Chin's Haiqiang asked a photographer he had just met to help take a group photo in front of him with his mobile phone. It was almost done this time. Chin's Haiqiang took a look and thought it looked like a photo of 2 couples. Just thinking about it, of course he and Tong 11 were not a couple, nor were Lu Chang'an and Bai Hui, but Bai Hui tilted his head. His actions really make him feel more intimate with Lu Chang'an. One more, Lu Chang'an, I'll switch places with you. Chin's Haiqiang made a request, I want to be closer to my idol. Bai Hui smiled. She could see that Chin's Haiqiang was obviously catering to Tong 11. Boys seemed to start to be witty as soon as they had a girl they liked. On the other hand, Tong 11 made some small moves next to Lu Chang'an. She tilted her head to look at Lu Chang'an and stood on tiptoes to make herself look taller. She had not yet reached Lu Chang'an's armpits and stood next to Lu Chang'an like a child. After taking a few pictures, Chin's Haiqiang looked at the photos again and was very sure that Bai Hui only tilted her head and approached Lu Chang'an's shoulder when she was standing next to Lu Chang'an. There was that sense of intimacy, and it was not some license plate habit or some unintentional little move. Chin's Haiqiang satisfied his desire for gossip analysis and said nothing, and did not intend to tell Tong 11 the little detail he discovered. Chin's Haiqiang and Tong 11 went to play, while Bai Hui took Lu Chang'an to the back of the stage to talk. Why are you here today? Even though she knew that he couldn't be here to surprise her, and that it probably had nothing to do with her and was just a pure chance encounter, Bai Hui still felt a little surprised. It's like it's been raining continuously for a month. I'm walking on the road and suddenly find myself enveloped in the sun. I look up and see that the dark clouds in the sky have leaked out of a small corner, and there's a ray of light that's just right. Just pamper yourself. A ray of sunshine can't change the weather, the rain is still falling, and the humid air is still cold, but it still makes me feel good. I'll accompany An Nuan and her mother to the nearby car show. Her mother is going to change her car. Lu Chang'an looked around. He just needs to hide next to Bai Hui later. There is no way that the alpaca will not come to Bai Hui. Fennel. What a coincidence. Bai Hui stood on tiptoe and her smile suddenly became much brighter. I was also thinking of going to the car show next door later. I still have to buy a car, otherwise I would always mention it when I go to participate in some activities. It's not very convenient to take a taxi with a big suitcase. By the way, will An Nuan come over to play later? Things like cos props and low skirts take up a lot of space. Sometimes she even brings her own camera, not to mention essential makeup boxes. It's really inconvenient not to have a car. Well, here we come. Oh, I didn't have an appointment with her before, but it feels like a coincidence. I mainly came to the comic show, but I also wanted to go to the auto show. She mainly went to the auto show, and stopped by the comic show to hang out. Haha, isn't it interesting? Bai Hui said to Lu Chang'an with a smile. Lu Chang'an shook his head, I don't find it interesting. You'd better miss it and don't run into it, so as not to embarrass me when it comes to acting. How is that possible? What are you talking about? Bai Hui's eyes blinked, shining brightly. I think she must know that I am at the comic exhibition here and will definitely contact me later. How is that possible? Miss. We are all good friends who know ourselves and each other well. How could we miss each other in this situation? Naturally, we wanted to meet and chat with each other with laughter. Maybe Lu Chang'an would be a little embarrassed. After all, when girls chat together, the topics are often difficult for boys to get involved in. Especially An Nuan and Bai Hui, they usually have a lot of topics to talk about. The two little mouths talk together without Lu Chang'an getting involved. Then just don't contact me when you are together. Lu Chang'an was about to leave. He was not here to participate in the comic exhibition, but just to catch sheep. Bai Hui raised her arm, wanting to wave goodbye to him, but when she stretched out her hand, she grabbed Lu Chang'an. Let's talk about the conversation. Then tell me, where did Zhu Huntang go? Lu Chang'an asked. Bai Hui seemed to remember Zhu Huntang just now, and looked at the time in surprise. That's not right, she just sent me a message telling me that she had entered the venue and was going to come to see me. Why hasn't she seen her yet? At this time, Bai Hui's phone lit up. Bai Hui looked at the screen. The message previewed above was sent by Zhu Huntang. Bai Hui, I'm in the first dressing room in the dressing area. Bai Hui habitually opened the message and saw the following text. Lu Chang'an is chasing me. If you meet him, you must use your big bear to fascinate him, puff puff puff. Lu Chang'an also saw it. Haha, some people actually think that I won't update until next month. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 812. Bai Hui didn't react until she finished reading, and hurriedly closed the screen. Bai Hui didn't have the ability to use the big bear to enchant him to death, but she knew that Zhu Baa would be beaten to death. Give me the phone. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand. He didn't grab it directly. This was a friendly gesture, hoping that she would learn to be conscious of it. Bai Hui looked around and pulled off the black tie in front of her skirt. Lu Chang'an took a step back in resistance. Was she planning to molest him again in public? Lu Chang'an has this kind of male consciousness. When a woman behaves like this in front of a man, she should not expect and enjoy it, but should understand that the other person is trying to molest her. If you are not an acquaintance, be sure to keep evidence and call the police. She stuffed the phone into her collar, jumped up and down, and the phone disappeared. After doing this, Bai Hui didn't panic anymore, but looked at Lu Chang'an with a little pride. Could he get it? Does he dare to take it? If he really goes to get it, Bai Hui will definitely clamp his hand to prevent him from moving, and then he can subdue him. It's really stupid. Do you think I can't do anything about it? Lu Chang'an sneered. I want to take away your mobile phone to prevent you from leaking information, but you can't leak information now. Bai Hui thought for a moment and realized that was the truth, but that wasn't important. What was important was that he was helpless, and girls sometimes like to do things that boys can't do anything about. I already know where she is. Lu Chang'an looked in the direction of the dressing area. This is indeed a good place to hide. In the dressing area of the comic exhibition, every door that is opened is a character from another world. A princess from another world appears here wearing a divine robe, and no one doubts her identity. It won't be as eye-catching as other places, making it easier to observe and collect basic information about the world when it first arrives. Lu Chang'an originally saw a few breadmen looking around in the dressing area, but it was not just in the dressing area, but also in other places. Zhu Huntang brought many people, enough to confuse Lu Chang'an's sight. Lu Chang'an knew where she was hiding, so he was not in a hurry to catch Zhu Huntang. Why do you want to arrest her? Bai Hui pulled Lu Chang'an to talk to buy more time for Zhu Huntang. She felt a little guilty. After all, she had leaked Zhu Huntang's location. She didn't know how Lu Chang'an would deal with Zhu Huntang later. She spat at me. Lu Chang'an couldn't help but picture Zhu Huntang puffing up his cheeks and spraying 3 times in a row. Ah! Look, you scared her, as if you were going to kill her if she spat on you, Bai Hui asked in confusion. Although Lu Chang'an likes to beat people, and can even do things like throwing people under bridges and burying them, he only deals with bad guys. He is not so cruel to his friends. Sometimes Bai Hui will provoke him a little, and he will only show a very angry expression, but will not really do anything to her. At this time, Bai Hui always feels very angry. Interesting. But Lu Chang'an's treatment of Zhu Huntang was different. Zhu Huntang was always punished by her, crying and miserable. Most of the time, Bai Hui felt that Zhu Huntang was asking for it, but sometimes she also felt that Lu Chang'an was right. Zhu Huntang is a little too cruel, such a cute little fairy cannot get any mercy from Lu Chang'an. How come there is someone so immune to cuteness like Lu Chang'an? Most people will be particularly tolerant and like others just because they are cute. Maybe it's because in Lu Chang'an's eyes, his definition of cuteness is different from others. For example, most people think girls' cute heights are cute, and he likes the big ones. Well, I'm going to kill her and make her into a nutritional supplement. Lu Chang'an nodded. He had threatened Zhu Huntang like this last time, thinking that she would have a longer memory, but obviously the threat continued until lunch that day. When she took out the electric shock device to shock him, he had already disappeared. Don't argue with her, she's just a little naughty sometimes. Bai Hui took out a pack of wet wipes, pulled one out, stretched out her hand, and handed it to him. You're too tall, I can't give it to you. You wipe it yourself. I will talk to her later and let her apologize to you. Lu Chang'an took it and wiped his face, shook his head and said, this is not a question of apology, you know, just like when you were studying, you were ranked last every time in the exam, and your parents were very angry. Is it useful for you to apologize? Bai Hui was a little confused. She always came last in the exam. If there was such a child at home, she probably wanted to put it back into her mother's belly and reshape her. This apology was indeed of no use, but what does this have to do with Zhu Huntang? Is she the child in Lu Chang'an's family who always comes last in the exam? The last time, was last year. Once in the woods, you sneezed on me and sprayed saliva all over my face. I wasn't angry. With the way you are now, shouldn't I be angry at that time? Did I kill you? Bai Hui continued to save Zhu Huntang. There was no way she could leave Zhu Huntang alone. She was the only one who could slightly influence Lu Chang'an here. Unless Zhu Huntang was a good friend of An Nuan, calling An Nuan to appease Lu Chang'an would probably make Zhu Huntang completely safe. This is different, Zhu Huntang and my relationship with her, well, I have a good relationship with her mother, so I am almost an elder like a godfather. Lu Chang'an thought for a while. Think about it, if you suddenly scolded your elders like your second uncle at home for no reason. Your second uncle knew about it and came to your door to scold you. As a result, you spat at your second uncle again. If you were your second uncle, you how to do it? Bai Hui understood this somewhat, but the truth was this, but was this truth suitable for him and Zhu Huntang? Just like everyone knows that the recently launched Long March 5 rocket embodies the application of Newton's laws, but if you are obviously going to explore singularities through black holes and white holes, do Newton's laws still apply? Let's do it, just spit on me, and I'll take the punishment on her behalf, Bai Hui said bravely. It's not like she has never had Lu Chang'an spit on her face. What else did he say that only her girlfriend can eat? The privilege of his saliva is hilarious. Lu Chang'an thought for a while, nodded, and slowly took a few steps back. Bai Hui opened her mouth slightly. She was a little panicked. Could he really vomit? Most people wouldn't take it seriously at this time. Oops, Lu Chang'an is not an ordinary person. At this time, a spindle-shaped water line, as clear as ice flakes, spit out from Lu Chang'an's mouth. Like the hidden weapons fired from the mouth in many movies and TV dramas, it shot through the air instantly and hit Bai Hui's mouth. Bai Hui stood there stunned. Lu Chang'an actually spit at her, and even spit in her mouth. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 813. Bai Hui occasionally thinks about what it will be like when she and Lu Chang'an are together, what kind of atmosphere it will be like, and what the two of them will do. It's just a pure fantasy, it doesn't mean anything, It's just because Lu Chang'an is handsome and he is an acquaintance, so when he fantasizes about it, he just thinks about it casually. Just like boys, don't they often have that kind of object? But Bai Hui never thought that such a scene would appear, which was unheard of and unseen. Even in various stories, girls are shot by men with bows, guns, cannons, and star destroyers aimed at them, but no male protagonist has ever attacked a girl when he is dealing with her. Mouth squirts saliva. Lu Chang'an is always so unexpected that it goes beyond people's imagination. Even Zhu Huntang, who has a wild mind, is not as good as, well, they are almost the same. Today, Bai Hui had a hard time accepting the reality for a while. Her fingers were tense and her hands were spread out by her side like two brackets. I originally thought that he just sneezed on me like that day in the woods. In that case, the price paid was acceptable. This is not the case now. How could he do it? Is he still a human being? Yes, when two people kiss, it is actually a process of exchanging saliva, but the form is different, and the feeling is completely different. Should I look like vomiting now? Does that make him think he thinks he's disgusting? No, if he doesn't act disgusting now, will he feel that this girl has no pride at all and can even accept being spit on, so he despises her and looks down on her? When the white fennel brain was knotted like a ball of yarn scratched by a cat, Lu Chang'an successfully got rid of the obstacle and disappeared into the crowd. He first bought a bottle of water and rinsed his mouth, then drank the rest of the water. Then he came to a row of locker rooms in the dressing area and looked at the first locker room calmly. Zhu Huntang's bodyguards have gathered around. There is no doubt that the hiding place of the eldest lady has been discovered. They must form the last line of defense to protect Zhu San, who has no ability but is rich enough for them to bite the bullet. Miss. What's more, Miss Take Zan is innocent and cute. As a bodyguard, she died generously for her, and she is more or less a knight who defends the princess's sense of honor. In fact, the legend about Lu Chang'an, among the bodyguards who have little contact with the inside story, is that he can kill people with his fists. In actual combat, he killed a Rottweiler dog weighing more than 100 kilograms. Almost the same. Lu Chang'an can freely enter and leave the eldest lady's floor, and even Zongji treats him respectfully. It is said that Lu Chang'an has played with the eldest lady's underwear wantonly, and the third wife knows that she intends to marry Zhu Huntang to Lu Chang'an in the future. This is the final reason why the bodyguards didn't want to fight him. Otherwise, two fists would be hard to beat with four hands, and Lu Chang'an would definitely not dare to make a fatal blow. Everyone would at least give her a little credit. It would be impossible for him to capture the innocent and lovely third lady and humiliate her wantonly under the protection of everyone. Mr. Lu, if you have something to say, please tell me. If you insist on forcing a breakthrough, we will have to knock us all down. As the leader of the breadmen, a tall and strong man looked at Lu Chang'an calmly. Okay. Lu Chang'an didn't want to embarrass them, so he knocked them all down. The security guard in the venue had noticed the movement a long time ago and saw that everyone was being knocked down by Lu Chang'an. Then he walked cautiously close to the wall, took a few photos and ran away. Pushing the door of the first locker room, it was not locked inside. Lu Chang'an walked in and saw Zhu Huntang standing against the wall, his eyes turning around, and finally stopped, falling on Lu Chang'an, revealing a trace of perseverance and determination. Puff puff. Zhu Huntang attacked again with 3 consecutive attacks. This was beyond Lu Chang'an's expectation, and he didn't expect that she would dare. It's just that Zhu Huntang didn't spit much. After spitting a few mouthfuls, he rushed over with dancing hands. Old man, I'll fight you. Lu Chang'an held her hand down. Zhu Huntang raised his hands and kicked his feet, but he couldn't reach Lu Chang'an. After a dying struggle, Zhu Huntang stopped moving, panting under his palm, and temporarily fell into his clutches. She was just a little fairy with money magic. She didn't know other fairy magic, so she was no match for Lu Chang'an. Zhu Huntang, I just met Bai Hui. She asked me why I was so angry. What do you think I answered? Lu Chang'an asked calmly without wiping the spit she spit out again. Do you think I can guess it? Zhu Huntang tried to delay time. Now he can only wait for some opportunity to appear. I said, I know your mother. I am probably an elder like your godfather. Godfather? Is it the kind that wants me to wear a short skirt, or the kind that gives me New Year's money? Or the kind that just wants to flatter my mother? Zhu Huntang frowned. Is there anything in this? Information that you can analyze and get important information that can shock the old man unexpectedly, so that you can seize his leverage or a sore leg and reverse the situation. Why did he suddenly say Godfather? Is it simply to deal with Bai Fan? Zhu Huntang quickly analyzed it. After hearing her words, Lu Chang'an controlled the strength of his palm. If it were any other small animal, it would be dead. Lu Chang'an couldn't understand why she wasn't afraid of him at all. For such wanton nonsense in front of him, the master of Zhu Fenglai sword sect didn't take him seriously at all. I have to let her know how powerful I am today. Modern people are very sophisticated and realistic, and their emotions are weak. Godfathers are not as important as before. In the past, if you had a godfather, the godfather would also educate you. I will teach you something today to guide you in learning martial arts correctly. Lu Chang'an he let go of his hand and saw that she raised her head and didn't spit at him again, then he removed his hand and looked at her indifferently. Zhu Huntang was a little confused. What was the old man's idea? You said you learned martial arts by observing animals, and that's not wrong. Apart from running away, the only way a creature like the alpaca can defend itself against the enemy is to spit. You really have no fighting power in front of me. Apart from spitting, you don't have anything. Method. Lu Chang'an's eyes began to become gentle, and he sighed softly. From this point of view, your ability to observe, analyze the situation between the enemy and ourselves, and take countermeasures all reflect your ability. Excellent side. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an in shock. What a shame, old man. No, Grandpa was really mad at him. You observed and learned the alpaca's martial arts skills of spitting, but you only learned the surface. In those days, people simulated animal forms and carefully observed the animals for many years, even eating, drinking, sleeping together, and then learned the essence. Lu Chang'an said earnestly. He said, when you spit, it's only a small amount in your mouth, but when an alpaca spits, it includes part of the liquid in its stomach, so the amount of spit increases. So that's it. Zhu Huntang was stunned for a moment. Could he still vomit out what was in his stomach? No. Just when Zhu Huntang realized it, she had no time to dodge. Lu Chang'an opened his mouth and spit out a jet of water, which was sprayed towards Zhu Huntang. The water column was crystal clear, as free of impurities as bottled water, and it sprayed onto Zhu Huntang's face at lightning speed. Ah! Lu Chang'an, you! Zhu Huntang screamed and quickly stretched out her hand to wipe her face. The water Lu Chang'an spit made her whole face wet, but the water splashed away, but in the end there seemed to be something left on her face. Zhu Huntang quickly looked at the mirror on the wall and saw that his face was covered with a liquid of unknown composition, like a sticky mask, which stuck to his face and sealed his eyes, nose, and mouth. What is this? Zhu Huntang was horrified. A facial mask made with my saliva. Lu Chang'an smiled. You spray saliva on my face, and I will give you a saliva mask in return. Isn't that very particular? Don't worry, it will be absorbed by your skin after a while. Absorb it and beautify it. Zhu Huntang quickly pulled off a piece of black gauze from her skirt and covered her face. She hurriedly prepared to go to Bai Hui to see if there was any way Bai Hui could help her tear off the saliva mask. As for what happened after a while, God knows how long his time will be. Running to the door, Zhu Huntang turned around angrily and spat at Lu Chang'an again, but was blocked by the spit mask. Zhu Huntang coughed twice, kicked Lu Chang'an and ran away. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 814. After Zhu Huntang ran out of the locker room, he found his bodyguard team of men in black standing in line outside with shame. They were not missing arms or legs, but they were indispensable for looking embarrassed. There were many people waiting around, many taking photos and videos with cameras and mobile phones. A few fragmentary comments reached Zhu Huntang's ears, and they all said that it must have been some kind of hype activity, this kind of exaggerated short video website. There are many, but today's group is particularly professional. They are probably a professional team or children from rich families who have spent a lot of money. No one believes in the modern urban martial arts legend of a dozen or 20 people, even if they see it with their own eyes. Zhu Huntang calmed down a little. She found that Lu Chang'an's thick and sticky saliva was stuck to her face. Although it couldn't be torn off, as if it was growing on her face, it did not affect her breathing and sight. Otherwise, Zhu Huntang was really a little scared. Now I just feel a little embarrassed, but fortunately my face is covered. The black veil makes me more mysterious, like a fairy. The fairies on TV are all veiled. Usually Zhu Huntang is just willing to let mortals have the honor to witness the peerless appearance of fairies. So no veil is worn. You have worked hard today. When you go back later, go to Zhongqing, well, go to Jinxiaomei to receive your hard work pay. Zhu Huntang frowned. They were taught by Lu Chang'an that it was when they felt guilty and uneasy. It was also the time for Zhu Huntang to consolidate their loyalty and pay hundreds of thousands of hard work for nothing. Maybe when he is really in danger in the future, someone will step forward and sacrifice his life to save the savior. Maybe there is no such opportunity, maybe no one will do it, but necessary rewards are still needed. Buy a chance. They say you can't buy loyalty with money. This is a big joke. If you don't buy it with money, can you buy it with your body or your emotions? It's not a mixed group, and Zhu Huntang doesn't have that much time to talk about relationships with his subordinates. For people who work to make money to support their families, giving money is the best relationship. Of course, the charm of the little fairy also plays an indispensable role. The people in black bowed even more ashamedly. They usually learn to dance clumsily, and the eldest lady beats and scolds people fiercely. But when she really fails to fulfill her duties, the eldest lady is extraordinarily considerate and will not say a harsh word and returns the hard work. Fee. With a boss like this, who wouldn't want to do their best to protect her? It's just that our abilities are limited, and we can't bring guns and shoot here. We can only go back and train harder. Next time we encounter such a situation, maybe we can persist for 3 to 5 minutes longer. Zhu Huntang turned around and walked away, feeling extremely depressed. Why was it that he was obviously a fairy, so he should be lawless, and everything in the world was going well, but a demon like Lu Chang'an was born to suppress fairies? Fortunately, his saliva didn't stink, and even had a pleasant smell, which made Zhu Huntang feel psychologically uncomfortable and did not have a physical stress reaction. It seems that I can't spit on him anymore. This person is particularly good at treating others in his own way. When I shock him, he will always shock him back in the end. If I spit on him, he will spit back. By the way, can I take advantage of this characteristic of his and find an opportunity? Zhu Huntang thought hard, but did not realize that he could no longer provoke Lu Chang'an from now on. Zhu Huntang couldn't think of a solution in a short period of time, and she was not in a hurry. Next month, many senior think tank talents funded by the Zhu family will hold a forum in Junxia to bring them together for discussion. Zhu Huntang found Bai Hui in the guest lounge. Bai Hui was sobbing and applying makeup. Her shoulders were shrugging and her nose was sniffing. Her eye makeup was really annoying. From the corner of her eye, Bai Hui saw a body covered in soft white light, as if she had walked out of a divine light. Although the woman couldn't see her face, she knew it was Zhu Huntang, So she said, "You're here." Zhu Huntang looked at Bai Hui's coquettish and aggrieved look, with a nasal sound in her voice, and felt a little uncomfortable, so she immediately looked around. Was there some little bitch who was jealous of Bai Hui and had a falling out with Bai Hui? I really don't know how to live or die. My men in black can't beat Lu Chang'an, but I can tear the little bitch apart one by one. Who provoked you? Zhu Huntang asked aggressively. Who else could it be? Lu Chang'an, Bai Hui said with a pout. The momentum suddenly dissipated with the wind. Zhu Huntang scratched his head and sat opposite Bai Hui. What did he do to you? Zhu Huntang asked gloomily. We are both from the far corners of the world, and we only met because of Lu Chang'an. This Lu Chang'an is so hateful, he doesn't take fairies seriously at all. Both himself and Bai Hui are humiliated by him wantonly. He is completely the villain in the TV series. It's a pity that the fairy in the TV series was kidnapped by the devil, and the Jade Emperor came to save it. In reality, no one can save the fairy. He spit at me. Bai Hui started to cry in a grieved tone when talking about this matter. His spit was like a hidden weapon, and it shot into my mouth. Ah! Zhu Huntang imagined the scene and couldn't help laughing. How could he do this? He can do it. Smiling, Zhu Huntang's veil fell down. Bai Hui was embarrassed by her smile, but she saw that Zhu Huntang's face was covered with a thick film of water, and her eyebrows and eyelashes were pressed down. The eyes and mouth are particularly obvious, just like a faceless man. Bai Hui couldn't help but laugh out loud. The small mirror in his hand fell on his lap. He quickly picked up the small mirror and pressed his belly. What's wrong with you? Bai Hui felt a little pain in her stomach, because her waist was tight. Zhu Huntang looked silly, like one of those children who like to wear masks. Zhu Huntang quickly picked up the veil to cover his face, hit Bai Fen, and said angrily in a low voice, "This is Lu Chang'an's vomiting, he vomited all over my face." Bai Hui's small mirror fell to the floor again. This time she didn't care to pick it up. She pressed her belly with both hands to prevent herself from bending over with laughter. She held back the tears of laughter and said, This is good, a big mouthful of water, how can it be like this? Bah, what he spit on my face was just spit, yours must be the essence of the spit on you," Zhu Huntang said angrily. "Really, what is this? Yes, it is indeed a bit funny, but it is so funny. What saliva essence?" "Essence," Bai Hui smiled. "Girls have all kinds of essences, which are applied to many parts of the body for absorption and maintenance. The essence of saliva is, of course, a mouthful of concentrated phlegm." Bai Hui's smile seemed to have been rubbed by someone, twisting it into an uncomfortable expression. How could Zhu Huntang be so disgusting? She always thought that Lu Chang'an was the leader among them. It seemed that Zhu Huntang was no different from him. Thinking back on it, Zhu Huntang and Lu Chang'an spit at each other, and he suffered an unreasonable disaster. Both of them were so annoying. At this time, there was a shock in Bai Hui's chest. Zhu Huntang looked at it suspiciously, then got a little excited and reached out to take it out. Bai Hui opened her hand and took out the phone. Seeing it was a mobile phone, Zhu Huntang pursed his lips in boredom. Bai Hui looked at her expression and stared at Zhu Huntang in surprise and shame. "What are you expecting me to take out?" "No, what do you mean?" Zhu Huntang rubbed the mask on his face and widened his eyes innocently, letting Bai Hui see the ignorance and innocence inside. Bai Hui hesitated for a moment. She would never be deceived by Zhu Huntang's appearance again, not to mention that her face was covered with a film. The more her eyes widened, the more she looked like a little witch with evil intentions. Bai Hui ignored Zhu Huntang and answered the phone. En Nuan was coming to the comic exhibition and said that he saw Bai Hui's poster and must come and see it. "It's En Nuan, it's strange, why is she looking for me?" After chatting for a while, Bai Hui frowned after hanging up the phone. Under normal circumstances, and Nuan should have found Lu Chang'an first, and then accidentally, and met the lonely Bai Hui by chance. Forget it, who knows what she is thinking. We are old classmates and good friends, there are so many twists and turns, there is no need to think too much about it.